innocent blood that said. In a revolution, some people are weak, while others are strong. Listen to my song. Listen to my song. Listen to my song. The weak turn to come the revolution, subversion and destabilization. Listen to my song. Listen to my song. Is the strong ones to stand for and make things right? True. Show to the weak why we must unite. The weak, them, they don't know who they're fighting for. Moving aimlessly, in a sense, that's war. Mother people, I go with them, so listen when I say, in this yes time.
This is Ridealong Live, where everyone has a story to tell.
Yeah! You gotta be firm in this time, son. You gotta be strong in this time, son. I'm a survivor.
Hey, ride along. Welcome to the ride. Welcome to Thursday on the ride. Yeah, welcome to Thursday on the ride. As you're coming, go ahead and share up the thing, share up the program. Yes. We are in part number 3. Yeah, man. Guys, before I start and I big up anybody, I got to tell everybody that they have to share this program today. Everybody that's watching me right now have to share the program and start a watch party, including myself. Let me do it myself. Everybody that's watching the program today have to and must share the program and start a watch party today, including myself. Let me go ahead and do it. Yes, I just did. Everybody got to start a watch party. Go ahead and start a watch party right now, because today, we are up to part 3 of this series, right? A closer look into the revolution. And today, as we always do, we have 3 very esteemed panelists on today's program, and it's going to be a good discussion. I promise you it will be a good discussion. Before we go on again, I got to say happy birthday to Kibbs. Happy birthday to you, Kibbs. Celebrating your birthday today. We wish you all the best. Coming from everyone at Ride Along and your mom, a big supporter of the program. Lydia James, how you doing? I share. Yeah, you share? Nice. Wendy, I see you. Mavis Joseph, thank you so much. Mavis Joseph, big up Kibbs for me. All right? Thank you so much, Tamika Rogers. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I have a light right above here. I don't need it right this minute. Probably I do. Let me see. Put it over here. I don't want it too glary. Lydia, thank you so much. Yeah. On second thought, I'm going to take it off. Yeah. All right. There we go. Yes. I am in the house. I share Jacinta Charles. Thank you so much. Share the thing. Happy birthday, Kibby, again, coming from everyone. Gordon, Boney, Julian, thank you so much. Welcome. Mavis, thank you so much. Guys, as I said, tonight is going to be a debate. So we definitely have to finish this program by 8 p.m., right? But we're going to bring some closure to this three-part discussion that we had. This discussion that we had started last week. Started Sunday, actually. So let's go. Starting over here, he is not a first time on the ride. In fact, this man actually gave me so much clients, so much work. I love working for this man. He have been a good friend and put me in contact with so many people. And I appreciate that. I always tell him that he's a good friend of mine. I'm marketing. How to say, a marketing executive, and he's just a think tank. He knows everything. Mr. Michael Roberts, Mike Roberts, on the program here today. He is the editor of Caribbean News. Also, he at the time of during the revolution, he was the head of security, then head of the special branch, and that's like the intelligent branch under which CID firearm department is now formed. So he was a part of the major part of what happened there during the revolution. Mike is we're happy to have you on the program today. Also, he been on last week and he continued to share his knowledge and information with us. He was a prisoner during the revolution. His name is Mr. Denis Charles. He's back with us. Thank you so much, Denis Charles. And also, he is the former head of the opposition, the GULP. He is the former agriculture minister, parliamentary representative for St. Andrews Southwest, Mr. Michael Baptiste. They are with us here again today. Mr. Michael Baptiste, Mr. Mike Roberts, Denis, Charles, everyone, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you.
How you guys doing today?
Very cool.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know where we're gonna have a good discussion today. I could feel it in my bones. I could feel it in my bones. All right, let's start with you, Mr. Michael Roberts. Welcome to the program. So how are you doing? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Mr. Michael Roberts.
Oh, where do I start? I'm a very proud Grenadian. I happen to have been a key participant in the Grenada Revolution. I started as the head of personal security, which is the unit that was set up to guard the Prime Minister and other members of cabinet. And then after, I traveled overseas to Cuba and to the then Soviet Union, and then came back to Grenada. But prior to that, I headed the special branch unit, which is part of the Grenada Police Force. That's a specialized unit that specializes in intelligence and counterintelligence. Today, I am the editor of Caribbean Times News. We're the new kid on the block. We're about 6 years old. And we're really the authentic voice of the Caribbean community in Brooklyn and in New York City. And as well as I have my own company, Common Sense Strategies Group, which is a digital marketing company in Brooklyn.
Yeah. And I had to publicly tell you that, you actually gave me a lot of work, a lot of clients, video production work during various campaigns, which I'm still in contact with a lot of those people. So I got to say thank you for that. And we remain friends over this time. So again, it's Michael Roberts. Well, we know of Mr. Denis, but if you're joining us for the first time, Denis, just give us a quick intro of yourself again, sir.
Yes. Well, I'm so often on your program and other programs in Grenada, including George Grant and so forth. I'm pretty much a household name. Yes, as a kid, I was involved in a roundup, I would say, during the revolution, but I was a big supporter of the revolution. After graduating school in 1979, I played no part in the revolution, but myself and my dad, we part ways. I went to Trinidad, but I had loved Bishop so much that I returned for the first year anniversary. I was in Queen's Park, just to hear him speak. So I was a pro-Bish guy from day one, growing up in Tivoli. And unfortunately, things went badly for me from there. So I traveled abroad, did many things, including real estate and investment and all of that stuff. I'm now in Georgia, and I'm proud to be Grenadian as well.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. And he's back with us again here for this part 3, Mr. Michael Baptiste, former opposition leader of GULP and former MP of the St. Andrews Southwest. Mr. Michael Baptiste, welcome again back to the program.
Oh, I thank you so much, and a pleasant evening to all the wonderful listeners out there. Of course, the pleasure and the privilege is mine this evening to be in such great company as my dear friend Michael Roberts, and of course Denis. I too looking forward to a good evening. I must indeed say, and I have to be brutally frank to say that I was never a supporter of the revolution. I am always a supporter of the late great Sierra Gary and the GOLP, and I had a lot of difficulties and accepting what they deem as the revolution. I had lots of difficulties in the coup d'état, and this evening I would continue to express my continuous opposition to what happened.
All right, so let's start back there, guys. In the last segment, part 2, we spoke about 1951. What you and at the time Livingston Nelson and even Denis said that was the only revolution that Grenada ever had, and you classify 1978, 1979 as a coup d'état. Michael, you have a sort of a difference of opinion as far as it relates to that era. Summarize that era for me, Michael, because we didn't have you on a part 2. Get your point of view on 1979. What actually happened in 1979?
Well, 1979 was the culmination of a number of issues, both objective, both subjective, within the confines of Grenadian society. Let me say this, let me back up. 1951 was a genuine revolutionary moment. And over the years, it has in fact acknowledged the work that Eric Matthew Gary did at that period in time. However, post 1959, a number of situations took place in the country. Part of it, the fault of the then ruling Grenada United Labour Party, and part of it, external stimuli at the level of the international economy, regional issues, the level of the productive forces in Grenada, and a number of issues that confronted the Grenadian government. I will say this, that during that independence movement around 1974, prior to that, Jamaica's independence, etc., a lot of the political leaders were granted independence. England granted independence to the Caribbean countries, not out of the goodness of their heart, but because the Caribbean region as an economic engine became untenable. The problem for Grenada and the rest of the English-speaking Caribbean is the fact that most of the political leaders came out of the nascent trade union movement, and but were not trained. They understood to some extent Westminster type politics, which in my view has failed in the Caribbean, spectacularly. So what you had was a confluence of issues that created an internal position in Grenada, a position where the people who were running Grenada at this point in time, the Eric Gary regime, reacted to both local and regional stimuli in many different ways. I refer folks to the Duffers Commission, the era of Inspector Belma as one person in that period, I refer folks to a number of demonstrations for that would be a mirror image back then to what is happening in the world today, the nurses demonstration, and other issues that created a condition which in Grenada that led to the 1979 revolution. Now let me say clearly, different countries experience different revolutions at different times. No two revolutions are the same. Look at the American Revolution. It was a lot of bloodshed, a lot of other things. Look at the Cuban Revolution. Look at the Russian Revolution. The Grenada Revolution is unique in that it was a revolution launched as a popular revolution against a repressive government at the time, with all good intentions, I might add. However, as we go along in this afternoon and people ask questions, I would be able to kind of explain and explore in a more comprehensive way what happened, what were the reasons, and so forth.
Right. So that goes contrary to what Baptiste is saying, because Baptiste has a quite different view of that time frame and wouldn't even refer to the thing as a revolution. Baptiste?
Thank you. Well, I am not going to agree with my dear friend Michael that it was a popular revolution. In 1976, there was a general election. The participants of the coup d'etat took part in the elections. Of course, the people spoke, and they both agreed to abide by the outcome of that elections. You have to understand what was happening at the time. The 60s were turbulent years. First, we had a global international conflict between the Eastern Bloc countries and the Western Bloc countries, and they were using surrogates around the world to spread their different messages. We were just coming out of, we just getting into independence from 1974 after being under colonial oppression and exploitation for a number of years, and it was a young democracy. This group of young intellectuals, fresh from universities across the world, they came home and they were not bent on adhering to the Westminster style democracy. In prior to their coming to Grenada, we experienced peace and harmony among the political forces in Grenada. We had the GNP on one side, the GLP on the other side, and though they had some philosophical differences, but after elections, they settled down. The revolution was, the overthrow was aided and abetted by outside forces. Of course, they got the materials, and the propaganda machinery was in full gear and so on. So by March 13th, 1979, one of the things they were successful in doing, in painting Eric Gary as this oppressive dictator. And I think based on that sort of propaganda, they got massive support from the outside of Grenada. And hence the reason why the misconception about the revolution being, about what they styled revolution being popular. But there's nothing popular about it. You would recall that from 51, when Eric Gary came into Grenada and introduced and invited himself into the feelings of the working man and started his revolution, it was against the plantocrats, the bourgeoisie. And he had several strikes against him. He was a country boy. He was dark skinned, maybe dark like me, and so on. And therefore, there was prejudice in the system, whereby a little black boy from the countryside the bourgeoisie and and the bureaucrats at the time and the just would not accept Eric Gary as the leader. So leading up to independence, there were civil unrest, national strikes, and so on, that laid the groundwork for 1979. Yes, I would agree. I would hastily agree that the government of the day was not prepared. I don't think any government in the region was prepared to deal with the kind of radicalism that was taking place. We had the Black Power movement. We had the unrest in Trinidad and Tobago. Jamaica had the upheaval. Guyana had the upheaval, and so on. So Grenada was no exception. But at the time, based on the enthusiasm of these young intellectuals fresh from university, they came in and the conflict started with the Grenada United Labour Party, which laid the foundation for the overthrow.
Okay, Michael. Mike said something there that was arguing back and forth the last time about to try to figure out, right, to put it into historical perspective. The reason for the 1979 coup d'etat or revolution, was it because that Gary in fact was a massive oppressor, a dictator, hence the reason why the people revolted against him?
Well, let me first, I need to kind of push back on a couple of things, historical, erroneous historical and contextual definitions and characterizations that Mike did, with all respect. A coup d'etat is a power struggle between one internal class or group. That is why it is almost often because of a military groups seizing power. So power relations on the ground are not changed. What is changed is how and who controls that power in one internal class. That's a coup d'etat. That's not a revolution. A revolution, in order for it to succeed, has to have the popular backing of the vast majority of the people. That is true of the American Revolution, true of the fundamental facts. So I wanted to kind of put that in a historical perspective. As I said, a revolution in Trinidad and one in Puerto Rico will look very different because of the conditions on the ground. In order for a revolution to happen, there must be two conditions: objective conditions and subjective conditions. Under the Gary regime, all of the objective conditions were met. Late in paying civil servants, massive unrest, the mongoose gang, police brutality, the repression of the state. And yes, Mike talks very eloquently about Gary fighting against the bourgeoisie. One of the features of Garyism is that Eric Gary created his own black bourgeoisie in the capital as a result. The Ben Davises of the world, the control of sugar and other aspects. He created his own black bourgeoisie as a consequence of being rejected by the mulatto-type plantocrats. He's right about that one. And when we talk about a popular people's revolution, and we talk about revolutions in general, there is a misconception that what you start with is what you end with, and that is not true. No, you can have a popular people revolution, as what happened in Grenada. The NGM called people out. We did not have a standing army. We overthrew a government. We called to the people of Grenada, and they came out in large number, as Prime Minister Bishop would say, to put the repressive elements of the country under heavy manners. That's a fact. No, is that the end of a revolution? And people believe that when you have a revolution, there is not a set of processes, sociological, economic, and political processes. So at the end of the day, Grenada was in its first stage. And that is because of how Grenada was developed at the time. We were a pre-capitalist condition. We could not have had a socialist condition. In order for socialism to triumph anywhere in the world, you have to have an advanced economy, a literally advanced capitalist economy. So therefore, Grenada was in a process. And the first stage in that was a popular people's revolution.
Mike, before you go on, let me ask you a question right there. Stick up in there. You said oppressive force under heavy manners. Who exactly was those oppressive forces?
The elements of the secret police, the elements of the Mongoose gang, and other players. This is documented historically. I'm not making this up. This is what people went through. There was a situation in Bolio when police put people's heads in the police station in toilets, made other people eat cockroaches. Morris Bishop, Unison Whiteman head was shaved in the Grenville police station with broken glass bottle. This is historically factual. So to say that Grenada was at peace under the Gary regime and nothing was happening, and the political party of the plantocrats, the Grenada National Party under Howard Blaze, etc., they were going along to get along. People were suffering. The biggest joke around that period in time was that civil servants had to get paid in 45-day increments. It was because the government was unable to meet its financial obligations to the civil servant. All of this created a fermentation on the ground that led to the rise of NGM and led to the Grenada Revolution.
All right, Michael Baptiste, I suggest possibly you have something different, a different for that particular point.
I and Mike could disagree forever on that terminology.
But we're still good friends.
It is, of course, and karaoke partners.
Yeah, of course.
Let me say that a revolution is one whereby the masses revolt against a system. In 1951, when Sir Eric Gary came into Grenada, his revolution was not about political power. His revolution was about changing the social and economic standing of the ordinary man. And hence he started out with his revolution. In 1979, and Mike, let's be honest about 79. The government was provoked. This group of intellectuals, some of our brightest minds that came from universities around the world, they were advocating implementation of a new ideology, socialist/communism. And it was attractive for young Grenadians and sometimes people who were on the bottom of the ladder and was left out. It was attractive rhetoric for them at the time. But to say it was popular, I don't see how you can say it was popular when it was led by a few people. It was not until after the overthrow that the word PRG came into being. So let's leave that aside, the terminology, whether it's revolution or whether it's overthrow, because I know we have a lot to discuss this evening, and we're privileged to be with Mike, my friend Mike. He has been in the midst of the actions, and he has a lot to light to share on what happened. And I'm glad that he started off by talking about the excessive of of Eric Gary, because I'm sure we'll get to that later on, the excessive of the so-called revolution, the very said thing that they oppose. I'm sure we would reference them and see how we get to that.
Denis, let's cross that bridge quickly as it relates to that period and that era, because again we passed that stage in part 2. I just wanted to just go back a little bit to just give a contextual, a historical view. So when we start to talk about 1979, 1983 on onwards, then people have an idea. So Dennis, just give us a historical perspective of that particular time. Do you consider it a revolution, a coup d'etat? What's your view on that?
Yes, well, there is a little bit of what you call different shades of gray here. And what I want the Grenadian people to understand is that, yes, in fact, Grenada only had one true revolution. That was the Gary Revolution in 1951 onwards, right? And the changes that were brought about by Sir Eric Matthew Gary benefited the broad cross-section of the Grenadian people. Let me tell you something. Gary built over 30-something schools and clinics throughout the country. Gary did not build any prison. Gary did not implement what you call Hopeville, a concentration camp where Rastas by the hundreds were interned. And if Mike Roberts, my dear friend, and I'm very glad to in person have him on that program. I know me and him need to go one-on-one, probably on another show, but I would like to have him one-on-one with me. What I would say is that he never talked about Hopeville, where Rastas here were cut off with cutlass, where they were forced to eat pork. And when they close them out and they don't want to swallow the pig meat, they break teeth. Some of the Rastas were tied down with handcuffs and all of that behind the hand. They have to pee in their pants. And if they don't eat, they don't get food. I also could remind Michael Derrick Roberts that he himself, when he's talking about abuse under Gary, he himself brought the brother of Tillman Thomas to Hopeville from the Fort Rupert repeatedly every day of the week and pound the daylight out of his shin bone and in the cap while he handcuffed to a tree.
We'll get to that point.
We're going to get to that. So I have a lot to go. I'm coming.
Your passion about that era.
Right. So that era, Gary had a revolution.
Julia,
yeah. Right.
Let me say this very clearly. I was asked to come on this show. I am not going to remain in a show when somebody comes on your program,
right,
and categorically accuses me.
I am doing so.
Of and I don't need to stay on the show.
No, okay, Mike.
Understand this.
Hold on.
Because I am not going to take that.
Right.
Yes,
It is patently false.
You could sue me.
This guy has never produced a shred, a scintilla of evidence, but has gone on a program to attack me.
Junior,
I am not going to deal with this.
Let me finish speak.
I understand very clearly.
Let me finish speak. Let me finish speak, Michael. Let me finish speak. I'll let you speak. All right? I want you on a show with me. Emmanuel
I am not here to stoke your ego.
Hold on, my time
I
to
am
talk.
not here to
Can I civil, my brothers?
All right.
It's my time to talk.
All right. This is I don't want this is not
Emmanuel Charles, also known as Super from St. David's. I have him on documentation. He just made a show in Grenada, and you could ask Livingston Nelson, where he accused you of ponging the daylight out of him on the fort. Super. Is that a lie?
Yes.
Were you ever in Hopeville? Did you ever transport any prisoner to Hopeville and abuse them physically?
Never.
You never? Okay. Are you willing to meet Super anytime?
All right.
Why am I on this program?
Okay. All right. This is okay. Dennis. Okay. Let me make it clear, guys. This is not really adding to the historical
at all
that we want to the public.
He's got something.
This guy must say the truth. You must talk the truth.
Right. Okay. Listen. This is what we're trying to do. Derek, tell us your involvement during the revolution of the revolution and your position. I know you said that you were the so I could get it right here. You were very close to Maurice Bishop at the time. He was his personal bodyguard at one point in time. Tell us the role that you played.
Who are you talking about?
Mike Roberts.
Yes. I was head of security. That is well known.
Head of security, yes.
It's well known. I was a close confidant of Maurice. I knew Maurice since I was my time in GBSS. After GBSS, we stayed in touch. I knew him very well. I'll say, people alive right now, outside of his personal family, his close family, his daughter, his former wife, etc. I probably am one of the people that know him very well. That's a historical fact. I was the man's head of personal security and his bodyguard for about 6 months before it was transformed to a different area. So he's somebody that I know very well.
Right.
All right. Let's move on, Junior.
Tell us about the day that after the day of the revolution. What was the mindset of the people of Grenada? Were they happy? Were they celebrating? The general consensus of the population, Michael?
People were in the streets. People came out in the streets. Remember, we went to Radio Grenada. The future Prime Minister Maurice Bishop spoke, and people came out in the streets all over the country to say that the Grenada Revolution was somehow led by a group of intellectuals in the city. And every revolution in the world is led by an intelligentsia. It's a study. Go back and look at it. The Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro was an attorney. Just go over any revolution in the world, you would have that. It's not an abnormal, and it's not something abnormal. So you will have that leadership. And from that leadership is when it's involved. I'm hearing that, the Grenada Revolution was one where the Gravy Revolution was about the people. You kidding me? Have you ever seen what the Grenada Revolution, its manifesto? The slogan of NGM, let those who labor hold the reins. So to say that somehow the Grenada Revolution was run by a small intelligentsia, privileged class is patently unfair.
Junior, the NGM had nothing to do with the running of Grenada after March 13th. It was the PRG. The PRG was controlled by Orel and by MAP, Teddy Victor and the NGM members, including James Thierry, right? Stanley Cyrus was here in the United States, in Washington, D.C. area there, a lecturer. All the other guys were sidelined. Donville Nichols picked up and jailed. Teddy Victor picked up and jailed. Kennedy Budlal picked up and jailed. Buck Budlal picked up and jailed. Ronnie Skull, accused in the assassination of Innocent Belma, to facilitate the revolution, picked up and jailed. Godfrey Williams, Gamen, picked up and jailed. Mess, Stephen Callis, picked up and jailed. Gravels Nelson, the brother of Livingston Nelson, picked up and jailed. Every one of them who fought the revolution, picked up and jailed. They were NJM. They were not PRG. There was nothing called the PRG on March 13th, or March 12th, or March 10th, or March 11th, or March 9th.
I didn't say PRG.
I'm giving you some history. Hold on, you talk, right? So the NGM had nothing to do with, after March 13th, the NGM ceased to exist. It was a PRG coup d'etat, if you want to call it that, or a power grab. And then they scheduled the old guards of the NGM, the revolutionaries, the real guys who fought, because Maurice Bishop didn't fight anything on March 13th, neither Bernard Cord. Right? It was an opportunistic grab. And they put all the other guys in jail, including Teddy Victor. You could come now.
You want me to respond?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. NJM is the political arm. The PRG, just like you have the Democratic Party here, and you have the Congress and so forth, the PRG was the governmental arm. It happens in Trinidad today. The PNM is a ruling political party, but the PNM forms the government. That is logical. Here is what I will grant you, Denis. What you said there about some people being picked up and put in jail, you are right. I am not in, if there were areas of the revolution that was wrong, I am not here to defend that. I'm big enough to tell you you are right. And those were the end result of immature political action. It doesn't excuse it.
Yeah.
That,
I agree. All right.
and some errors and blunders that the revolution made.
Okay. I'll give you that.
Michael, who were the people and how were the prisoners?
Which Michael?
Mike. Okay, so I'm gonna call you Roberts, and I'll call Michael. Okay,
Junior,
because
Junior,
there's Mike in here. There's Mike.
listen to
Yes.
me, Junior. We already have an
Uh-huh.
established name, you know. In the karaoke, people who don't know us call it the tall mic and the short mic.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
So
All
let's
right.
go with
All
it.
right. So okay. Let's go there. Mike Roberts, sir.
Yes.
How the people that was picked up on jail? What was the reason? What did they have to be accused of in order to be arrested? Did they have to do something against the NGM, or what was the characteristic of the people that was arrested and jailed?
Well, some of them, not all, some of them were engaged in activities that would have undermined the revolution. That's a fact.
Like what? Like what? Like what? Give me an example.
Let me tell you, let me give one example of how that accommodated. You remember there was an issue in Queen's Park where somebody put a bomb to destroy the entire revolution. Here's the reason why. Here's the reason why that bomb didn't kill more people. Bernard Bailey was killed and a couple other people and so forth. Here's the reason why. And it was a Labor Day. It was a May Day. So all the workers were coming down and they were doing everything. And they were going to have a fun day in the park, which was International Labor Day. They took this bomb from the north of the country in St. Patrick. They brought it down. There were 2 bombs made to detonate. But the night before, we had ringed and swept the park completely. So there was no bomb in the park. And we had the army stand guard in that institution, since all of the members of NGM, the leadership at that time, would have been there. The bomb was taken from Sotiers. They went to the market square. The young lady that carried the bomb bought a paper bag with bananas and everything else, and the 2 bombs was there. They were brought to the park. But because of the tight security, where they wanted to place that bomb, it wasn't there. So it was just put on the side and left there. Luckily for people around and the leadership, only 1 bomb went off. And it killed those Bernard Bailey in the middle. I could still remember that. I remember it because I saw it. After that, a number of people were arrested in connection with that issue. And that is how the revolution dealt ongoing with threats to it. Let me say one more thing before I stop.
Yeah.
You remember, probably August of 79. March, April, May, June, July. Yeah, around August of 79, I was assigned as the head of special branch. Our first test as a revolution came about a month later. I was a young, when I say young in terms of being green, in terms of as an intelligence, counterintelligence chief, it was difficult. We had to put it in place. You know what happened to our first test? Our first test of an attempt to overthrow the Grenada Revolution came about a month later. The famous de Ravinier plot. We picked him up in his house just below governor's house, the governor's mansion in St. George's, literally making the Molotov cocktails. We didn't shoot him. We arrested him and all his co-conspirators. Yes, though there were legitimate times. And let me say very, very clear here. In any young revolution, in any young government, a government of the new type, people are going to make mistakes. Did some people end up in prison who did not belong in prison? Hell yes, that's true also. But to say that this was a program to pick up everybody with dissent and put them in jail, that is not correct.
All right, Junior, can I ask him a question, please?
Go right ahead.
All right, Michael, I know I really want some time with you, and I would respect your right to be, different, and don't want to, I'm not here to attack you or anything like that, but it's a long time in coming we have a lot of questions to ask. One, you alluded to the fact that there was a bomb in Queen's Park. We know
Yes.
that. But I want to remind you that the mass arrest of Grenadians after the revolution started way before March. I mean, before the bomb in Queen's Park. In fact, the response by country people to the abuse of power, breaking up of families, dragging their loved ones in the middle of the night from the homes, that was a response. I'm not condoning violence. Bernadette Bailey died, and maybe some others and other people get injured. I was in the hospital at that time. In fact, I was in the general hospital. I was already shot in my cell in the prison, and I was almost killed in front of the hospital. The person who saved my life was later killed in planes. And we're going to get to that, and I would like you to understand. His name is Steve Lalcy. I was just nosy, listening to a patient with a radio. So I left my bedroom. I was in Aqua Ward, right? I left my ward, I should say. And I went outside to listen to the news about a bombing. So I wasn't on my bed. And they were guarding me 24 hours a day, right? With AK-47, soldiers taking turns, guarding me and Rasananang. You understand? And I stepped from my bed. And Steve ran and came to me. He was a cadet. And he said, Grappa, my name is Grappa. I went to Magana College and they never called me Denis. They don't know who is Denis Charles. Everybody called me Grappa, right? So when I hear Grappa, I turn around so. And he said, get back inside the room now. Get back inside the hospital right now. Those soldiers looking for you to pass you out. And the only reason they didn't kill me, I had braided my hair and I had a, what you call a beret, the black thing. So they're looking for, my hair was long all here, you know, my braids at the time. And they went towards the hostel. I went towards this way. And I had squeezed behind the crowd of people and people moaning and bawling and all of that and jump on the bed. When I got to my bed, they finally came. The hand was on the trigger, but they couldn't kill me inside of the ward with the nurses and all of that. Eventually, they shift me and James Bowen. That's the same guy Maurice Bishop shoved up the cigarette in his nose hole. He's in Canada right now. And another one, I can't remember the name. They lined three of us up in another ward in the middle, right? And the PRA put us there and he said, one bullet, he executing all of us tonight. We couldn't pee, okay? They didn't even give us food or anything to eat. The nurses couldn't come. They had to report the incident, I think, to Daniel, who was in charge, or Mr. McLeish of the prison. I can't remember, one of them, okay? No nurses, they had to give me my medication. I was getting injection for poison bullet and all of that at the time. So there is a lot I would like to talk to you about. Yeah. I'm not attacking you, okay? Yeah. All right, let's go.
Counter-military. I want you guys to explain that to me because even in the interview that we did with the University of the West Indies, that came up. Mike, who was categorized as a is it counter-military or
counter-revolutionary?
Counter-revolutionary. Mike, who was considered a counter-revolutionary?
Well, there are a number of remember, we as NJM, as a revolutionaries, took power in a different way, out of the traditional way. The traditional way that Grenada has always changed power has been by the ballot. That is a fact. We did not take power by the ballot. We took power by the gun, by the bullet, if you will. And there are different behavior, if you will, different actions and counter-reactions based on that fact. Now, the old power structure in Grenada did not change overnight. Could not have changed overnight. We took power, yes. We were putting in place and setting up political power, the government, and implementing the kind of reforms that we figure were in the interest of Grenadian people. But there were elements outside of that, the old elements outside of that, who, quite frankly, hated the revolution. And as such, a number of them were deemed counter-revolution, counter to the revolution, and were arrested. Now, this is not different or an aberration of what happens in a revolution. One of the tenets of the revolution, I make apologies for that, that once the political party and the process of attaining revolution, like how we did it, comes to fruition, there is the distinct possibility that people and other elements are going to push back. And as such, the revolution, in the interest of its programs and policies, will curtail that kind of activity. Remember, this was not a Westminster type democracy where you vote in the ballot box and so forth. As a matter of historical perspective, we'd gone through the electoral process. We went through the electoral process in 1976. I think it is Mike reference it, and there was every international organization understood that election was not free and fair, and that is what sparked the transformation of NGM into what it was in terms of March 1379.
John Correa is saying that anyone who did not support the NGM was considered a counter-revolutionary.
That's not
Correct.
true. Not
Correct.
true.
It
Not
is
true.
true. It is true.
Not true.
Dennis, you were arrested. You were taken
Yes.
into custody, and you stayed a number of years, 2 or 3
3 years
years,
and 8 months.
and you were shot in prison. Were you a
Yes.
counter-revolutionary?
I was not a counter-revolutionary because my cousin, who facilitated the barrel of grease with guns in it, right? James Wadali, his father is the one who get me out, right? Uncle Cosmos Wadali. He's my mother brother. He's the one that came down and met Bishop. Maybe you were in the meeting with him. He's a half Indian guy, right? And when he turned around and he came on at the den and asked Mr. McLeish and them to bring me up from the prison. Okay, so they took me from the prison and they brought me up to see him. I see this tall Indian man stand up with a big pipe in the mouth smoking, and they brought me in to speak with him. And after that, the next day, when I got back, they tell me they're releasing me. Go and get all my things. I didn't have nothing much.
Yeah, but hold on.
Okay.
Then, how did you initially get arrested? How did you get arrested initially? What were you doing against the NGM that got you locked up?
I don't know, stealing sugarcane from Ivanto estate, maybe. I don't know. I mean, between me and you, the only thing I know, as I told you, I was a bishop man. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was a bishop, okay? And remember, Kennedy Boudlal dated my sister. They had a child. So I just came from Trinidad. All I was doing was picking my father cocoa and sell so I could get money. I didn't have to work. And then I go and steal sugarcane. In the night, we cook bacanic and dumpling. So we were going out on the street. I had to go to get 2 pounds of flour. Father Paul, Jerry Paul, and Dominic Paul. That's the one who had the Spice Island imaging. That was my clique. And sometimes I cook with Livingston Nelson too. But when we came back, I had a lot of ants on me and all that cane straws. I had to go and bathe. And I was going to go to Mr. Lion's shop and get my flour. And I saw this PRA Jeep going down Norman Paul Trace. So our house that my father built for my mother is down in the Trace. And they passed me, they go, I pass them, I go, they don't know me, I don't know them. I just came from Trinidad. I wasn't in militia. I wasn't in the army. I wasn't in nothing. I don't have a gun. I don't have nothing. So anyhow, I asked my father, I see him drinking rum with a whole bunch of guys from Belmont Estate and all of that. He said, he don't know, he heard those Tivoli guys get rounded up and Kennedy picked up in jail or something. I said, well, I'm going by Mr. Land's shop. But when I got there, he had a lot of people ahead of me. And back there, they had to wait the floor for you. And they tell me, wait. So I just go and stand up in front of the building and just saw this PRA Jeep. And I guess it's he that sent them to me. And he never came to visit me in the prison or when I got shot in the hospital because he couldn't face me. And it wasn't deliberately done. I forgive him because he didn't know better. He could have gone and opened the house himself.
Right.
Yes, Kennedy used to come by my sister. And when they came, I said, yo, I don't own no house. But I wanted to go and cook.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't mouthing off at them and they say I was mannish. Because when Maurice Bishop turned around and asked those soldiers and them, well, why you pick him up?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bishop did not know I am Wadali nephew. And then my other uncle was the one with the band that made that song, Grenada, May God Bless You. So when he get to realize, they had to release me, right? And that is how I was released. But Bishop never go back on the radio and say, we made a mistake. We pick up this kid. He didn't do anything. and we shot him and we do this and we do that. No. To this day, people still calling me counter-revolutionary in some plot to overthrow government.
Yeah.
It's hard. I forgive Bernard Code. I spoke with Bernard Code. We settled our differences. Michael, let me tell you, I met Goat, and he asked me if I would forgive him. I say yes. I grew up as a Christian. He met me in this big lava lane, or what they call that place, by the airport.
Yeah.
And we eat and drink and all of that. We shake hands. I could show you the picture. And I'm like, in my heart, I have to forgive, but I suffer. And I could tell you over 3,000 and something Grenadians, I ain't even want to go in Hopeville yet. Suffered. We suffered, bro. We suffered. You cannot talk about Mongoose Gang and Gary. We suffered.
Mike,
with no air condition.
Were there a huge number of people that was taken into custody and tortured during that era? And why tortured?
Well, let me say this. I wouldn't be honest and fair if I did not say that a couple people were tortured. What the number is, I don't know. And that is the weakness of any young revolution. I'm not excusing it, nor am I saying it. What I am saying right now, what Denis went through, he should not have gone through. But one of the reasons for that had to do with the fact that in Grenada at that point in time, there were so many divisions, and people took the opportunity of the revolution to settle scores and to do things that, quite frankly, made the revolution today on this program sung as if it was just a bunch of guys who were, you pick somebody up and you start to beat them and you start to torture them. I could say without fear of contradiction that I have heard you, Denis, and I have heard you, and I've heard what you say in terms of my involvement. I certainly, I don't know. I don't know the person, and somebody's talking about beating them in the head from the
Tillman Thomas' brother.
I didn't even know that Tillman had a. I didn't even know Tillman had a brother.
Two of his brothers was also on the fort and tortured badly. I spoke with him. I interviewed him more than once. In fact, I went to a funeral in a church in Brooklyn off Eastern Parkway, St. John, and he came and he met me there, and repeatedly, right? Myself and Tillman, we were in a maximum security detainee jail that you guys built with the Cubans. I see them build that. We thought was goat. They coming to raise goat because I didn't realize they're going to take human being and put inside of there. Tillman it was me here with Denis, Rush, the Bajan police, and Noble Philip, who used to chop up guys in Monkridge. They take me and put with them. I was so scared, right? But I say if it's three of us, then I'm safe. When they put me to stay with the Mongoose Gang, I thought I would be strangled in the night. Then they take me and put me to live with a guy. They shove me all over the place with everybody I don't know, right? They put me with a guy called Tiger. Why you gonna put me, a young guy, to stay with in a cell with a man called Tiger? If he choking me in the night, and mind you, there were homosexuality in the prison. There was a guy who was there for hanging. His name was Frank. You probably know him. They used to, well, I won't say the word Grenadian bad. They used to call him Bullerman Frank. But strike that, Junior. Strike that from the show. But anyhow, as I said, I could tell you what hell was. One day I was eating a dry bread that they used to feed us, dry bread. And in the hole, maybe the rat, mice making hole in the bread, a cockroach come out. And I thought the cockroach was asking me something in English because one week Tazo antenna, he's like, what the hell you doing here? I had to blow the cockroach off and eat. We hungry, we starve. Rasta I Free, Fene, the father of Post-Right, this girl that write the book, the author. We used to count the ribs on him. And after that, they bring him in Hopeville and starve him some more with a whole bunch of Rastas, giving them roast breadfruit and fig for 3 months straight. At one time, he was so hungry, the man eat a raw breadfruit because he don't want to eat pork. When you guys can talk about Mongoose Gang, because I don't know, I'm going to Grenada soon and I'll meet up Nelson. I'll go to a studio and I have all those guys who I have interviewed. I brought one on George Grant before he died. and let him tell you what they did to him in Hopeville. And guess who used to be in Hopeville? Victor Husband, Maurice Bishop, Kenrick Radix. Even Bernard Code went there and told them, you guys going to stay here and rot. All you ain't coming out. All you're going to rot inside here and die. Bernard Code. But I forgave him when I spoke with him. He told me he's sorry. It's 50-50. Joint leadership. He has to take part of the blame, even if not everything he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to bring Mike Baptiste in, right? Because we was talking
About time.
we were talking about the Mongoose gang and what the Mongoose gang was doing versus what happened during the time of the revolution. When you contrast both of them, Mike, the atrocities of both sides, how do you weigh it out? Was it a worse by the Mongoose gang?
First of all, I want to go back to some things that Mike said in his opening statement. He said the revolution, in his opinion, its revolution was popular. It was popular maybe because of the false promises that was given to the people. Number one, you said free and fair elections, 6 months. You promise an end to all the excesses by the police, by the security forces. You said you would have a new and just constitution, not one that was given to us by imperialist forces, you said, but one that is homegrown. You promise a reformed judicial system. Yet of the thousands of people that was arrested and put behind bars, they didn't know what the charge was. They didn't know when they would have the day in court. And what was so disgusting about this, Maurice Bishop was such a brilliant lawyer. He represented scores of people that claimed they were wronged under the GLP government. Yet he, as head of that government, did not create a judicial system where not one person that was taken into custody had the opportunity to observe due process. You talk about elections. You said elections in 6 months. And you promised the international community that you would have elections in 6 months. After 6 months, what you said? There shall be no elections until all form of Garyism has been eradicated. I don't know how you plan to do so. And then you talk about free and fair elections. In 72, we had an election. It was 13-2. 76, it got down to 9-6, and it was very close. But yet, one of the issues advanced to the international community and the people at home was that the elections were rigged. And then you said Gary was a dictator. And they never could justify how a man who gave the country a constitution that only they could change, how he could be classified as a dictator, as opposed to one who gave us what he called a people's law, one that changed from hour to hour based on circumstances. So, in comparing what the so-called revolution promised as to opposed to what we had, there was a big difference there. People were disappointed in less than 30 days. We had over 3,000 prisoners up in Richmond Hill. Some of them were picked up the day after the overthrow. Not one charge was laid against them, including the famous so-called Mongoose gang that was internationalized as the Tonton Macoute and compared with the Tonton Macoute in Haiti. Yet when you were in control, the morning after you were in control, these guys were not charged for brutality. They were not charged for abuse of anything. So hence the reason why I said it was a group of intellectuals that came to Grenada, sons and daughters of the upper class society that had a problem with Gary as a black man and power being in the hands of the little man. They had a score to settle. And lest we forget the revenge for the death of Maurice Bishop's father. And sometimes we omit that as a mitigating factor in the reason why he was not interested in the democratic process, but he was interested in taking power at all costs. The Grenadian people, some of them started to oppose Uncle Gary, yes, and they wanted some change. And that change was promised them. But we never got that change. What we got was a total opposite than what was promised. So hearing you, my brother Mike, making reference to the excesses of the Grenada police force under Uncle Gary or the Mongoose Gang or the secret police, and comparing what you laid on the doorstep of the Grenadian people, I want to hear you on that. I want to hear some more from you on that.
Yeah, I guess you could respond to that, but the underlying factor is I want a comparison. I want to understand the comparison of the Mongoose Gang and what they have done, what they did, and the atrocities by the army and the militia or the PRA or these people that was picking up people reportedly abusing them and torturing them, or countless abuse and countless torture. Were there far excesses in terms of what the PRG was doing during that time and what the Mongoose Gang was doing?
Well, of course, when the Mongoose, whatever excesses the Mongoose Gang committed, and there was excessive, too much excesses, but we had a judicial system where that could be addressed. Maurice Bishop himself, along with that other lawyer from St. David's, Radix, and Ben Jones, they were fixtures in the court. They were acting as civil rights attorneys. But yet, when it was time for the people to address their concern in a judicial body, that was absent. And therefore, to compare what happened with the Mongoose Gang to what happened with the PRA and the PRG, I think it's total night and day. And the reason why that overthrow collapsed is because they were introducing a system to the Grenadian people that was foreign to them. Number one, your civil liberties were curtailed. You had mother against daughter, brother against father, neighbor against neighbor, and everybody became afraid of one another. Our custom in Grenada, at the now and then, prior to the revolution, is to, as they say, express ourselves the way we see it. And that is a piece of freedom that we inherit from the Almighty. Your ability to say that Gary is no good. You could not say Bishop is no good. If you say Bishop is no good, you wouldn't see the light of day, save and except when the US came and rescued the thousands of Grenadians from prison. The morning of the overthrow, there was not one political prisoner in our prisons in Grenada. We can't say that for the morning after the overthrow. They were picking up people based on their association with the GLP. They were picking up people because they were members of the Grenada United Labour Party. They were picking up policemen, and they were even picking up their own supporters. And there were no means for this so-called detainees that they call them, to address themselves and seek justice before anything, because we had a total breakdown of law and order, and it started at the top. And it started with the judicial system. We had no judicial system.
Let's give Mike an opportunity to respond. Mike, you care to respond to anyone on the points?
Oh, sure. First and foremost, after the triumph of the revolution in 1979, the People's Revolutionary Government suspended the Grenada Constitution as it was. The Grenada Revolution survived, existed for 4.5 years before it was overthrown by the US invasion. Yes, there were a number of promises that we were not able to fulfill simply because time did not allow us. Yes, there were issues of people wrongfully picked up, etc., etc. I have admitted this freely. I've written about it in newspapers and on whichever new radio or television program that I've gone on. I am not here to say that the revolution was perfect. It had its faults. There were a number of reasons for those faults. I just gave one. When people are oppressed or there is political division in the society, when one group comes to power, the tendency to revenge, yes. The tendency to excesses, like picking up people, arresting people without charge, etc., and not affording them due process rights, is very, very, very real. This happens also in democratic countries where there are political struggles. It's happening all over the world today. So we, as a revolution, were not unique. Now, there were two eras of judgment that we, as a revolution, in hindsight, and becoming more politically astute and experienced, freely recognize. Mike talks eloquently, as he always does, about a foreign ideology being put on, being introduced to the Green. Let's say that is right. And it is right. Because the New Deal movement was a party of a new type. The process that they wanted to, that the New Deal movement and the PRG wanted to set in Grenada was to set up a system that was inherently better than the previous system. Now, to do that, we had to take a number of fundamental decisions. And those decisions had always to do with how we view the progress, the rise, and the organization of society. Now, in that process going forward, the party and the government made a number of mistakes and blunders. I freely admit that. I've done that. That has happened and continue to happen all over the world, as I said. So we weren't unique in that. There was another issue, and this is not an excuse, but it is an historical context as to what we were put in place. The Gary administration and government was in power for 29 years. It had time to do the things that we didn't have or were not allowed to do in 4.5 years. So to compare the Gary era with the 4.5 years, and we did a whole, apart from the negatives, every time you land in Morris Bishop International Airport, understand that's a monument to what we did as a people.
That's Gary's idea.
I'm not talking about whether it's whose idea or not. That's a monument to the people of Grenada. That's all I'm saying. I'm not here looking at personalities in terms of that. That is one monument. One of the first things that we did when we took power was to institute a national literacy program. It's each one teach one. So it's not, we have to take and this is the historical contest, we have to take the good with the bad and the not so good.
Yeah.
Now, as a pragmatist over the years, understanding the Grenada Revolution and having a front row seat to it and so forth, Were there things that we should have done better? Yes. One of the great failures, and Mike pointed to it, was the issue of elections. And that is where the revolution lost popularity. Let me say it clearly here. The people of Grenada have had a history, a long and checkered history, of changing power by the ballot. That's a fact. That is why Eric got the name Uncle Gary, and we love our politicians, etc. That's a fact. Now, our immaturity back then, as a group taking power, or absolute immaturity. Remember, Morris was 38 years old. He even was a great lawyer, etc. We were still a bunch of very young people. The exuberance of youth and the kind of way that we did, and of course, power corrupts ultimately. We did not. We fell victim to that. In hindsight, when I look at the revolution right now, I'm a strong and unabashed supporter of the Grenada Revolution in all this fashion. And I am prepared to tell you, yes, we made certain errors of judgment that a more experienced hand, like a Eric Gary, who has been in power for longer than we were, would not have made. So that's what I have to say about this.
Let me ask you a question.
Junior, please allow me. Please
Okay,
allow me
I want
to
to jump in. I want to jump in, and I want some time,
1 minute.
Junior.
1 minute. 1 minute, Dennis.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, you said Uncle Gary been in power for 23 years, and that is not accurate.
29.
That is not accurate. Grenada became independent on February 7th, 1974.
Yeah.
Eric Gary became prime minister from February 7th, 1974 up to March 13th, March 12th, 1979. Maurice Bishop became the so-called prime minister from March 13th.
In power.
Wait a minute.
Not as prime minister.
You say power.
In power, yes.
During that 29 years, we had several changes of government in between.
Of course, that's what I'm saying.
Right. Now, under the old constitution that we had, Grenada could not establish diplomatic or foreign relation with any other state that was left to the United Kingdom.
British government. Yes, I'm aware of that.
We could not borrow.
Agreed.
And therefore, he functioned as someone who is handcuffed. As a matter of fact, and you may recall, his government was dissolved because what the local white administrator said at the time was squandermania because he bought a piano for $1,300. $1,300. Mm-hmm. Okay? So it is unfair to say that he was in power this long. In 51, when he came in, he didn't come in as a political person. He came in as a trade union leader. It was not until 55 he came in, and then we had what we call the Legislative Council. The Legislative Council was just a talk shop because the Home Office in England was responsible for the day-to-day operation of running a Grenada, including holding the key portfolio of finance and others. And the legislator at the time was just merely a talk shop, insignificant, because the power lies in England. It was not until March 7, 1974 that Eric Gary became Prime Minister of Grenada. So Eric Gary and Maurice Bishop, their tenure as Prime Minister was just about equal. 74 to 79, to March 13, 79, March 12, 79, and March 13, 79 up to 83, the time he was laid. So let's erase that from the discussion about this 29 years, because you're given some, it's a lot of misconceptions about that, about he been in power this long. He was not. Because we were a colony. We had self-government, then we had unitary state, and then we got independence. And during these years, we could not borrow from anyone. We did not have the Grenada under Eric Gary as unitary state government or as self-government, could not go to a foreign bank and say, I want $1 billion for the infrastructure. You had to get permission from the Home Office in England before you could do so. So he was handcuffed. So that's unfair to make that comparison. I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Dennis, I know you have a long question. You have a long question, yeah? But I want to ask this question, and probably that would go into Dennis' portion that he wants to get into. It has to do with widespread torture, because that era, there's so many people that contacted us that wanted to go on record to say yes, they was tortured. They know of a family member that was tortured, and it seems like it seems like there has been a lot of instances where it happened. So, Mike Roberts, to you, sir, did you know of any widespread torture during that particular era?
Well, I certainly not. I'm not saying that torture didn't happen. Understand that. In the context of the revolution, as I explain again, some people wanted to settle scores, or that saw an opportunity, etc., etc. That happened. That happened. As to if torture was widespread, no, I don't think torture was widespread.
Right.
Was there torture? Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I can say that.
And for the record, question that just came in: were you involved in any form of torture?
No, never, 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 never.
Okay, Dennis, you could go on with your question.
Yes.
Before you go on, Dennis, let me also tell the audience, guys, you're watching Ride Along Live, and we open up the phone line so you guys could call in if you have a question for any one of our panelists. You could call in. The number that you could call is 718-701-5720. That's 718-701-5720. That's our number right there. If you're calling on the WhatsApp, you could also do so, but you can call directly if you want to speak to a panelist direct and live. 718-701-5720. We're going to keep the number on the screen. Dennis, go right ahead.
Yeah, well, before I say anything, I mean, I must stick my heart out and commend, I would call him Brother Mike Roberts, for coming out and speak. I never thought I would have the day, not in my lifetime, to really face to face, let's call it that, have a conversation on any forum or platform with him. So that's a lot of courage to come out here and speak. And we may disagree, but I respect you even more than before. And as I said, just as I spoke with Bernard Cord, when I cried. I went to my commercial place here because I didn't want my children to hear. And we patch up things. I met Goat. I don't know who arrested me, but you have to forgive and you have to move on. I'm an old man now. I have grown children and all of that. So you can hold on to hate and the past and all of that. If I could meet Bishop now, I'll probably hug him and say, Brother Bishop, but you made some mistakes, some real bad mistakes, and a lot of Grenadians paid for it. So I don't have anything against you in my heart right now. I have to forgive, and I want to say thanks for coming on the show. So let me move on to what I wanted to say. I have some things to clear up. The PRA was an arm of the government.
Yes.
The Mongoose Gang was not an arm of the government of Gary. The Mongoose Gang were more connected to the Department of Health with the eradication of mongoose and all of that, rodents, and preserving the sugarcane all on woodlands and throughout the country, because the destruction of plus rabies, which could infect the Grenadian population. So they were paid. They were tough guys, fearless guys. Yes, I know. I stayed with them for a long time, but they were not a government entity, as was the militia. Now, if you want to talk about secret police, talk about the thousands of militia, young children who should be in the bed or in the house studying, doing maths and algebra or whatever it is, reading, but they're on the beach looking for mercenaries for when Reagan come to bury him in the sea. All of them have an AK-47. The average age of a PRA soldier, whether they could read and write, was between 15 and 17 years old. But they had the power to kill and to put fellow Grenadians, including the schoolmasters and school teachers, under manners. The Nenen and the parent too. There were a lot of mistakes made by the and supported Bishop. When I was picked up, I was hoping he would call me in Mount Royal or wherever it is and ask me and talk to me and let me go. I keep telling those people, no, I ain't gonna eat that food. I thought I would be out. But afterwards, I was closing my eye and swallowing the cockroach. And the rat droppings, the weevil, and those worms that are doing that, because the split peas was rotten by the time they get it from Brewster or wherever it is they get it from, flies. If you have $200-300, I mean 100 detainees, plus how much 100 prisoners, crowded up, cramped, three to a cell, you can turn, okay? You cannot cover all that food that this guy is nasty as ever had to prepare. You don't have no towel. Even if you get sheets and blanket when you're dishing out food, how do you think they used to cook food for us? You want to get mackerel and fig? All right, good. They take the mackerel, they put it in a netting wire, right? Or something like a fence thing. And they boil some hot water in a copper, in some big pot, and they throw on it. So one side get hot water. When you flip it below, the mackerel and see hot water yet, full of salt. But if you don't eat, you starve. You have to eat.
Right.
And don't talk about worms. Those rat in the prison. Junior, the balls bigger than yours. Excuse me, you could scratch that too. You understand me? They ain't afraid people.
Mm-hmm.
I never see rat eat through plastic bucket because sometimes I tell them I don't get bread yet. And I get 2 bread, right? Dry bread. And I hide it in a little bucket and I cover it like a lard pan or something like that. The rat would drill through that and eat the bread.
Right.
The food was hot. And then Ralph Thompson, before they poisoned him, he called a hunger strike. I joined the hunger strike for betterment. We want better food. We want dish and we want fucking knife and spoon, right? It wasn't Holiday Inn we were in, It was and to hear the Prime Minister go on the radio and boasting that he had us under heavy manners. Manners already heavy. You don't need to make it heavier. That was Maurice Bishop. The same Maurice Bishop knew about Hopevale. Who built the prison? Where they knocked down the tailor shop and part of the library. They tell us we don't have to read. They stop us from going and read. You talk about education. I'm a guy who read a lot. They stop us from going to any library. They knock down that to build the detainee jail. Maximum security, no window, no air conditioning.
Yeah.
And guess what? On top of the roof, they put tar on top of the concrete. Go inside it, and you're going to see what it feels like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning.
I don't want to rush you, right? But if you have a question, go ahead with the question because we have about half an hour. We have to.
Okay. I have a few questions I wanted to ask my dear friend. Were you aware, as somebody in intelligence and counterintelligence and all of that, about the massacre or killings in Plains? 1, do you know or have you heard? Were you present when the killings took place? And can you tell us if any PRA member or members were involved? And I shall yield to you and then Michael Baptiste.
Yes, I knew about it. You're talking about there were 2 killings.
Steve Lalcy and his friends, Plains.
Steve, along with Daniel Stanislaus.
Yes. And Andy.
Daniel worked for me.
Yeah.
He was
I
a
went to school with him.
He was a member of the. Stanislaus.
Yeah.
He worked for me. He was a member of the immigration department, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And that night they were going home. I don't remember what make of the car, but I know he drove this nice little car. Either one of them little Austin from England at the time. I don't remember what it was. And they were shot and killed on the bridge.
All right. Who shot them?
Some of the members of the Ayub, Duck, and somebody. I don't remember all of the people who were involved in it. So
you're representing here that they were not shot by the PRA?
No, not by the PRA at all.
Okay, so you have contradicting PRA soldiers who have come recently and admitted it was them that did the killing. Are you? Or are you not aware? Are you not aware that happened?
I'm not aware of PRA killed them. Because
right, I'll send you the information.
Let me see. Because afterwards, there were 2 or 3 people shot in Mount Rich after they took to the hills after the killing. So I don't know, have never heard, certainly, of PRA soldiers stopping Donald Stanislaw's car on the bridge. I think it's a kind of a wooden bridge. I don't remember what it was, but and killing him. I remember visiting the scene the next morning when it was known that they were killed. And I also know that the people who were accused of the killing was subsequently, I think one person survived out of the 4 or 5 of them. I don't remember how many there were. And they were subsequently shot in Mount Rich or Mount Rule. I think it is Mount Rule. Let me even tell you something. And probably you will hear it for the first time. The same group that did that killing, we were in Mount Rule. We set up command headquarters. I was in the command headquarters, yes. And we got a tip off. You know what saved our lives? Rain. Because the same group planted a bomb under our headquarters. And let me tell you another thing again. People in Mount Rule know about that. The persons who were involved, we knew after a while who they were, and they had 2 bombs. One they put below the headquarters. The rain came down and it didn't go off. The other one was hidden in the crunk of a tree just down the road, waiting to be used. So if you're talking about that, anybody that come here and said that the PRA was the ones responsible for killing Donald Stanislaus and other people on it.
I'll let you speak to other PRA who claim.
Oh, sure.
I'll give you some information after the, because you said you were intelligent, so I thought you really knew what you're talking about. I'll tell you that you don't know what you're talking about, because it is established right now that it was a mistake. The guys left from Pearls. I'll give you a lot of facts. I don't want to take up too much time, but you need to go back and read or research or check your sources, because you are totally wrong. They were executed by the PRA. And it was covered up. And they pretended, Mr. Lalsi, one of the richest men in Grenada, he didn't need help to bury Steve. They took all the bodies and they hurriedly buried them in the cemetery, and they paraded all the people from Mount Rich, handcuffed with gun, AK-47 behind the back. Some of them, they crammed them in an old house next to McDonald College in Mali, right? And they made them suffer there without food and all of that. I don't want to get into the details, but you need to check some sources. Yeah. You seem not to know quite a lot. All right, go back to Junior.
I want to move on to the time frame, the era of the house arrest and being freed from house arrest, and how did Prime Minister end up on the fort? Mike Roberts, I think you might be in a better position to give us historical context.
Okay. I'm enjoying this gripe and grievance fest a little bit, you know. All right. You know.
Mike, you ready to gripe and grievance fest?
Yeah, it's a little bit. Anyway, let me answer, you know, because I'm not afraid. All right. You know what happened? I don't know if anybody discussed the lead up to the house arrest of Morris, which was a fundamental mistake. Years later, I can say that. At the point in time, we knew that. I just returned from another part of the world. All right. The decision to put a sitting prime minister under arrest was the first mistake. It was a mistake that caused the collapse and decline of and death of the revolution. However, the decision to put him under house arrest was taken by the vast majority. I think 1 or 2 people voted against it, and in the party. Now, let me just clarify here, because I've heard many people talk about the issue of the New Jubilee Movement as a political party and the PRG as a government. Now, the New Jubilee Movement started with joint leadership. Joint leadership of the party was between Morris Bishop and Unison Whiteman. That is how it started. The question within the party that spawned the question of joint leadership after we were in power came out as a result of a number of problems within the party, people getting sick, a small group of people doing all the work, and a larger group of people not doing the work. So that was a discussion that started in Boulogne, and it started before I had returned to Grenada. That is what sparked the internal debate in the of the government. Was no point in time that it was said that Bernard Code or anybody else would be joint leader of the government. What it had to do with joint leader of the party, that discussion started in Boulogne, as I said, when I came back, probably in July or August. Around that time it started. It wasn't resolved, and then it continued until what happened on the 4th. I happened to sit right there, and you're going to hear this on this program because I was right there, right behind Morris. And when the decision was taken by the party in a vote that there would be joint leadership of the party and that Morris will continue what he does best, they were marrying the strength of both people. Bernard had always been, since he came back to Grenada, responsible for party organization, building, and that kind of platform. That is what it was. It didn't start as a power struggle. It didn't start as a fight between two friends. It did not start there. It started in the party trying to transform and reorganize itself. Because at that point in time, we were getting the pushback from people on the ground. There were issues of when we hold elections and so forth, and the party had to come up to deal with that. And it was an internal party discussion, and there was no issue about Bernard being the leader of the government. Morris was the leader of the government that was there. But the political party, in terms of internal organization, that's where the debate started. All right. When that decision was taken, Morris Bishop got up and said, I have no problem with this. However, I need a few days to see how we can operationalize that now that we are in power. That's a fact. I was there. So Morris took a couple of days, but within that point at that point in time, a couple of things happened. George Louison was on business in, I think it's either Bulgaria or the Czechoslovakia. He was there on government business, and he did not like that position. He took a counter position and was really opposed to the question of joint leadership. He made an unscheduled and unauthorized stop in Cuba on the way down to sell Fidel on the fact that Bernard Code and others, the military wing of the party, the militant wing of the party, were overthrowing the government. So by the time he arrived in Grenada, the situation in Grenada had become tense. Now, fast forward, Morris did not keep the promise. The party went back, and the decision was to put him under house arrest. All right. I was one of the last persons to see Morris under house arrest. Morris Bishop, and it was me and Hudson Hudson. Hudson Hudson is still alive in Grenada. You can ask him that. I had gone to the our hotel. I think it's called the Grenada Beach Hotel at the time. I was one of the members of the board of directors, as we all had to do. We had to serve on different economic and other non-political boards in terms of what the revolution was. I had to buy I think I had to pay for some silverware that came in. I was not well. Then from there, I went back up to the headquarters of the security, Butler House. While I was there, I saw some people coming out. That was the day of October 19th. I saw the people coming on. Peter David, who worked in the Ministry of Culture at the time with Chris D. Riggs, came up to there. And I said to him, what's happening there? And he said to me, well, the people free Morris Bishop. I turned around and told him, I said, well, that's good, because Morris is going to go to the market square and we're going to defuse this thing, and then we whatever our differences will come to it. This is because I had a conversation with him around 3 o'clock the previous day in Mount Welldale. I could remember what he wore and what he was talking about. He wanted to give me some cockspur rum to drink from Barbados that he likes. And I had to call out to him, no, I'm going back up in Gov. I really don't feel well. He said to me, he does not have a problem in principle in dealing with it. What he needs to do is to run what I just told him by Dix, meaning Kendrick Radix, and he'll get back to me in the morning, because I suggested to him that since the situation had gone really, really, really bad and the revolution was in danger, what they had to do is the both groups, the both sides had to come together politically to see with it. He agreed in principle. He said I should call him back. But by the time the next day, while I was at Camp Butler House, the people came and freed him, and I knew about it from Peter David.
Okay. All right. Baptiste.
Well said, my brother, Mike.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, Morris did not get into office by the means of the ballot. And if you belong into an organization and the majority of the organization takes a decision, they didn't call it a cabinet, but it's equivalent to a cabinet decision, that there should be joint leadership. And Morris did not comply with that decision. And he wanted to go out and speak with the people or to test it to see how it... Wouldn't you call that the making of a dictator? Because the same methods that was used to propel him into power, the same people are now saying, this is what you should do. And he was saying completely different. So there are those of us who are of the strong opinion that when Morris was killed, he was not prime minister at the time, because the powers that be gave a directive, and the powers that be placed him under house arrest. So freeing him did not make him prime minister. Freeing him escalated a situation that could have been easily resolved if he did not have that dictatorial tendencies, the same one that he accused Eric Gary of. He was displaying it right there. Because he could have saved what you said was the revolution if he just had agreed. Because remember, there were no system, no established process as to how leadership would be changed, other than through the process that you so well articulated.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to add, if I could piggyback on what Baptiste said, but I feel a little bit of sorrow listening to, I would call him my brother. We are all Grenadians together. Michael Roberts. I mean, I did have a soft spot in my heart for Morris. I was in Trinidad when the news came about the execution. I was in a taxi. I broke down. I mean, I know how hard a lot of Grenadians who loved him and so forth. But I have also come to realize that not everything that went bad during the revolution happened because of Bernard Cord. You know, there were some young men, very ambitious young men, given power, 18, 19, 20, 22 years old, not well vetted, no experience, but a lot of ambition and ego. And that was wrong. So then they were wielding the guns. And as you know, in a revolution, power comes through the barrel of a gun. In the end, Maurice Bishop was scared like hell for his own life. He told people that who told me that. You understand? So he knew what was going on, but the genie was out of the bag. It was too late. I also want to say that the not only torture, I'm talking about death. There was a young lady, very beautiful lady from Go, Scotilda. I want Michael to speak to that, to her death. Her son is always on the show, and he's mad as hell, even to this day, about the execution of Scotilda at the hands of Jacqueline Kreff. Let me hear what he has to say about it. Also, why did Maurice Bishop's wife run for her life in Canada and just flee? You know, was she afraid of Jacqueline Kreff? And was MAP and Orel dissolved as was agreed to in principle to form the New Jewel movement? But because, as you know, the New Jewel movement was basically started by the Mitchell brothers, Teddy Victor, and Unison Whiteman. But it turned out that Unison dumped Teddy. I lived with Teddy for years up at Richmond Hill Prison. And Teddy, I don't think he ever forgave Unison for that backstabbing. In any event, MAP never dissolved. Bishop kept his faction, Code kept Orel, and the only faction that left the scene was the Jewel, the original revolutionaries. So when the PRG was formed, there was nothing about Jewel there. It was Bernard Code and Bishop in charge. You know what I'm saying? So push will come to shove in the end. I want you to speak to that, please, sir.
All right. Mr. Roberts?
Okay. What's the first thing again you asked me? Because it was so kind of
Scotilda. You could deal with Scotilda.
Oh, Scotilda. I happen to know.
And even Ralph Thompson, if you know about Ralphie in River Road.
I happen to know Scotty very, very well.
Yeah.
I know all of her sons. Can't remember all the name, but I remember her first son. Very handsome young man, dark boy, and so forth. Can't remember his name won't come to me, but I knew him. I used to be at Scotland by her husband was before he died we used to call him Bread.
Yes.
So I knew everybody around that area. I used to be with Scotty very, very much. I knew her for a relationship with Maurice over the years and so forth. As a matter of fact, I could tell you that one of the things that he always did is that when he was under some form of pressure in the day or whatever, he would go by Scotty in the evening. And it's something that I would have to arrange. So I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So, all right, be that as it may, the day that Scotty was killed, I think there was an event, if I'm not mistaken, in Butler House, and one of my security people from Bolio. What's that boy nickname again? You're bringing it back to so many years, I'm not going to remember it all. But anyway, he was charged with picking up Scotilda. They were coming from Birch Grove, and when they reached just after Lamoud coming down, the car hit the wall on the right side coming down and ended up in the river. And that is how she died. I don't know about people assassinating her with Jacqueline Kreff. She was in a car. The car flipped over the side and pancake. As a matter of fact, that area is noted for a number of accidents over the years. What's the other thing you asked me?
Right. Ralphie. So Scotilda died because of vehicular.
Yeah, it was a vehicle. It really was. His nickname, I don't know if he's from Bolio. Ask anybody from Bolio.
I'll get her son. Yeah, I'll hook up.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem in speaking to the son. Which one? The red skin one?
He doesn't.
The other one name is Patrick.
Aisha Noel. He talks with me all the time.
Yeah,
so
the other one name is Patrick. I know Patrick. I know the other one was younger during the revolution. Patrick was older son. He used to be driving the truck. So I know the group. What's the other question asked about Ralphie?
Ralph Thompson. How was he killed, and why was he imprisoned? What did he do? Was he ever charged?
Ralphie was a very strong supporter of the revolution over the years. Shabula, NGM, and so forth. I knew Ralphie when we're doing undercover work. When NGM was in opposition. So Ralphie was one of the people, along with another young man from St. George's named Allison, who we used to distribute the New Jewel paper and put them on the doorstep of people in the morning when you were struggling against Gary during those times. So I know Ralphie that time. After the revolution, of course, he became part of the revolutionary morning, etc., and so forth. And he fell out with some of the members of the military. I don't remember who it is that he fell out with, and he was subsequently arrested for alleged counter-revolutionary activity. Again, that goes back to the question of people settling scores, intolerant, and just doing bad things. And that was one of a bad decision. I used to visit Ramsey all the time. At the time when Simon Daniel was the leader of the prison.
The prison, yeah, I know.
Yeah, that was Simon. So I would visit him all the time. The day of the shooting, I don't remember all the circumstances, and please don't think I'm evasive. It's just that I do not remember all of the circumstances surrounding his death.
Yeah, it's a long time, and I could accept that the only thing that I believe, as I said, I take my heart out, and I respect you even more because I could see that you're trying to come forward and clean and be very objective and so forth. So I have to say thank you for being here on this program. But with respect to the revolution, our revolution is fought mainly by the people. It's a grounds up or bottoms up approach. But where was Maurice Bishop and Bernard Cord while all the guys were fighting? Strand Philip was later killed, and the Budlals and all of that from Tivoli and all of that. Where were Bishop and Bernard Cord on the morning of the revolution? Which police station did they attack?
They didn't attack. They didn't attack any police station.
Where were they?
They were in a holding position at the south of the island.
They were hiding.
No. Those are the leaders of the revolution. And you could make an argument that you really didn't want your ultimate leaders of the revolution to get in a fracas and probably killed. So that was a decision taken to do that. That's a prudent decision. Okay. Morris is not a military person, nor was Bernard. They weren't military person.
Okay.
Right. Guys, we got a call on. We got two calls on the line. We have to take this call. Let's go to the landline call. Caller, you live? Where are you calling us from?
Yeah, hello, Junior.
Hey.
Mr. Elimas Gilbert here. Good night to your panel. Good night.
Jackie.
Thanks, Michael, for all the work you do with me over the years on my album. And you know that topic always a touching topic for me because I was there. I was in the demonstration. I was on the foot. I run for my life, all kind of thing. But I is one of the Grenadian that had hit the Grenada 17 and wanted them to hang, and I had a lot of anger for them until I read a lot. I get older, my mind change. I met them in person. Me and Bonner talk all the time. But a question I want to ask Michael, that just a question, if Bishop and the masses did not go on the foot, and like Bishop, they only go in the market square and speak, we don't know what he would have said. Well, what do you think would have happened, boy? That's a question I always ask myself. I mean, going on the foot was wrong. And I think the house arrest, as you said, was a big mistake. I tell Bonner and everybody that. But, to discuss the whole thing is a long topic. But Michael, why you think why if Maurice just go straight in the market and say, look, Z, B, C? What you think would have happened to me? Then, what you think would have happened?
All right. When Maurice was freed from house arrest and brought to the market square, I could tell you his intentions wouldn't to go on the foot or to march a group of people onto the headquarters of a military installation. I don't think we know now who it was that engineered the movement from there. Some people in the audience who did not like the revolution and did not like Maurice and literally egged him on and pushed him to go to the fort. Now, when Maurice got to the fort, elements within that group disarmed the guards, the sentries at the bottom of the fort going up to the fort. A shot wasn't fired. Nobody wasn't killed at that point in time. They went up to the fort. They took over the fort. The fort was taken over by everybody. And I'm going to tell you something again, and maybe Junior, you understand. This is the first time you're going to hear this from me. I happen to have been on the other fort when the when Morris and everybody went up to the fort. Here's the reason why. I was at the headquarters of the security, as I said. And since people had gone up to the fort, it was only a matter of time before they came to Butler House. And that is where we house a lot of sensitive information, method and means, if you were in the intelligence field, who was working for who, where, and what nation we were dealing with, and everything else. That was a concern. So one of them big, how we call them, Janet truck, I packed all of the what's it called, the filing cabinets and all the other sensitive information, and drove them to the other fort where it could be under guard, put them in a room and under guard. When I got to that fort, there was the BTR, the armored personnel carriers, there was one, there were two of them. And I spoke to the leader of that group. He came from Colonel Lane's Permanent Battalion, the PB, whose task it was to defend St. George's. Conrad Mears, who died, was the commanding officer of that force. I came out, I spoke to Colonel James, my boss, and I asked him what is happening. He said, well, they're going to take back the fort. All right, that's fine. After a while, they left, they went out the fort, and then the firing started. The first person to have gotten killed in a BTR going up the fort was Conrad Mears. Connie, we call him Connie. He's the first person. As commander and getting shot, that is when all hell broke loose, and the contact firing started from the soldiers going up on the fort. Now that got horribly out of hand. That is the first thing that happened. That went horribly out of hand. That the soldiers who were going to take back the fort were fired upon from people because they broke open the armory. It was a small armory. The other armory was in the south of the country, but as the headquarters of the military, there was a small armory at the top of the fort. They broke it open, and people took out arms and they armed people. At that point in time, the group, the mob that had gone to the fort, ceases to be a peaceful demonstration because it fired on legitimate army member, killing the commander in that line of fire. And that's when things broke open. The second thing I would say, putting Maurice Bishop, the legitimate prime minister, and everybody against a wall and shooting them was wrong because they did not give him due process. It was wrong fundamentally. And let me say clearly and unequivocally on this program, because I know people want to hear it. There was only 3 people who could have given the order to assassinate Maurice Bishop. Can't be me. I was a lowly person. The first person is Maurice Bishop. And he certainly didn't give the order to execute himself. The second person was General Hudson Austin, who happened to have been right next to me in the other fort, telling me about how he wanted to go to Cleveland Donald so we could go and eat some pork. That was his chief. So he couldn't have given the order. The only other person to give that order is Colonel Lane, who was the leader and the head of the permanent battalion, whose members were the people in the BTR that went to the fort. So I hope I put this one to rest.
Conrad Lane, as in Ewart Lane?
Yes. He's the only person who could have given the order. Couldn't be Liam James. Liam James was the de facto head of national intelligence.
So
he couldn't give members of the permanent battalion an order. No other lowly officer couldn't do it. Callistus Bernard was a member, so-called Abdullah, was a member of the permanent battalion. Yeah.
So who was Colonel Lane's boss? Who was his boss?
Well, he had 2 bosses. One is H.A. Hudson Austin, and the other one is the prime minister.
So would he have gotten command from one of his higher ups to carry down the order?
Well, he couldn't have given it. Morris couldn't have given an order to assassinate himself. So take
Right.
Morris out.
Yes.
The only other person was H.E. And I know he didn't give that order because I was standing right next to him.
So then, is it that Lane was operating on his own behest?
He was leader of the permanent battalion. That was his army group.
Yeah, go right ahead. It's getting a little clear now, Michael.
Mike.
Thanks for
Yeah,
Mike,
yeah.
yeah.
Mike, if Morris
Mm.
was relieved of his responsibilities and placed under house arrest, wouldn't there be somebody else or a joint committee that would be responsible for the day-to-day operation of the country then, seeing that he now become a former prime minister because he's placed under arrest, his power taken away from him. So in the first instance, why didn't he just accept the decision of the committee that voted to have this joint leadership rather than dissenting and choosing to go otherwise in a manner that would appear to be a counter-revolution?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He did agree with it. Let there be no ambiguity here. He did agree with it. He said that he wanted time to see how it was operationalized now that they were in power. When they were in opposition and when they were struggling against the Gary government, NJM had two joint leaders, Unison Whiteman and Morris Bishop. All right? So he initially agreed with it. And then, of course, other people got to him. As I said, George Lewison being one of them. And they have always historically been very close. And he did not carry through. And it was then that triggered the entire group to say that the party to say, well, we're going to put you under house arrest because and discipline you as a form of discipline for disobeying the party's rules. Now that happened. Yes, Mike, I understand what you're saying, that technically at that point in time he's being relieved of duties. But so in the context of October 19, when he was assassinated, he could not have given the order himself. I'm just trying to put everything for your listeners, and I know they've been patient with us for trying to explain a very complex situation and deal with it.
And we appreciate it. Hold on, let's pause it for a quick second, guys. You're watching Ridealong live. This is a long has been a long discussion, but it's a very important discussion. This is part 3. This is going to be the final part, so we have some closures to make. We have about 20 minutes left. Well, we got a call on the line. I want to take this call right now. Caller, go right ahead.
Junior?
Go right ahead. They're hearing you. So ask a question and listen to the answer on the live. Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, good night to you, panelists. And I would like to hear from Michael Baptiste. I mean, it's time to broaden the discussion. What are the benefits of the revolution? And also, what a part did the Americans have to play in actually influencing what actually went on at the fort and actually before that? I mean, let us broaden the discussion, man. It's too narrow, man. Okay, well, so Mr. Baptiste.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Let me say that I admire the utterances that came from the revolution where they were talking about total utilization of Grenada resources, our agriculture and our fisheries. I also admire their strive to increase on agro-processing, because taking into consideration when they came into office, Grenada was already an agro-processing island. We had 4 soft drink factories. We had lime factory. We had a soap factory. We had small cottage industries, and I admire them for industrialization of our resources. I think too that the quest in education, in advancing the CPE, I think that was something good. I think they're picking up on the technical education, because when they came in, we had a technical school, we had technical wing, and they came in and they established that and they advanced it to the vocational wing. I think too the national insurance scheme, when they came in, we had the Provident Fund. They changed the name. They call it NIS and they expanded it. But I disagree with them with the methods and how they set up the insurance scheme, because today we are having problems in our system today, where we have two sets of laws. We have one for those who work under Uncle Gary, a pension, which is the good one, where the people who work under Uncle Gary got a pension and a gratuity, and those who started to work under Bishop, they're getting a pension from the NIS. As a matter of fact, it is such a contentious issue at hand that it gone to the courts, and the courts had determined that the one law must stand, and that is the pension and gratuity that was set up from 1957 by the GLP. There was a sort of a sense of nationalism with they being in office, because they sold Grenada to countries that were not typical or traditional friends, like the Eastern Bloc countries and so on. And we got some help from them, which was good. I think in building of the international airport, where Uncle Gary had already identified for the airport, I think Maurice Bishop carrying out on the plan and making that a reality. I think that was a good thing. Okay. So there were several areas that I believe the overthrow made some serious gains, and they have to be commended for that. Okay. So it's not just the negative. There were lots of negatives, but of course there were some good things that happened under them, and I wish they could continue today. In sense of agriculture, when they came into office, agriculture contribution to the GDP was 69%. Our cocoa, nutmeg, banana, coffee, all of that was intact. We were doing very well, and they were hell bent in increasing that and seeing Grenada with a sort of a mixed economy, agriculture, tourism, and elsewhere. Yes. I think they made some mistake with the SGU. I think because of the rhetoric before coming into office, they downplay the importance of the St. George's University and opted instead to send our students to Cuba. I think what they should have done was to sit down with SGU and upgrade on the agreements that were set out by the late great Thierry Gary, and yes, we would have had more medical students at home. But I think by and large, they was on the right. They was on a good track. They were building a good line at some times. I think sending a lot of young poor people to study overseas, Cuba and all of that, people who probably wouldn't have had a chance to become a doctor, they became a doctor because of that. I think that in itself was something good.
Yes, Michael.
My mom also benefited. I think my mom traveled to Cuba as well. But hold on, I'm still stuck on something. Dennis, apologize for cutting you off there, but I'm still stuck on this idea right here, Michael. And what you said there is breaking news, probably to a lot of people. Bernard Cord is probably in a lot of people's mind, especially me being very young during that period. I've often heard of Bernard Cord as being like the most ruthless person that you could think about. Right, the demon, right? Mm-hmm. But you just said here that it was you were Lane who gave the command.
I'm saying no, I didn't say that.
Okay. Let me take that back. Let me take that back. You didn't say that.
I said there were only three people.
Three people. He one of the three. But you I mean, Maurice Bishop is not gonna give the command to kill himself.
Correct.
Take that off. And you said that the second person there most likely didn't give it. So you kind of
the general
didn't give it, but you didn't mention Cord. What role did Bernard Cord play in giving the orders or the assassination of Maurice Bishop?
None. Period. Bernard couldn't give me an order that I had to obey. Bernard was not military. The only two people who could have given me an order that I had to obey, well, there was three of them. One is Keith Roberts, who's now in Canada. The other one was Liam James, Osu. And the other one was Maurice Bishop. Maurice Bishop is the one that called me in the morning and said to me, "You the head of special branch." He's the one that promoted me to that. So Bernard, we regarded Bernard, related with him and so forth as the Minister of Finance. But Bernard Code couldn't give any member, even a private in the PRA, an order that they were duty bound to obey. So this notion that Bernard Code is the one that orchestrated all this stuff and that he is the guy that ordered Morris killing and so forth is just patently wrong. And I know some people who have been taken in with the propaganda and so forth would say to me that I am trying to defend, but I'm not. He could defend himself. What I can tell you is he couldn't give me an order that I was duty bound or bound in terms of the rules of engagement of the PRG and the army to obey. That's a fact. Couldn't command anybody.
What about the CC, the central committee?
The Central Committee is the political arm of the New Jewry movement. There was a group that designed broad policies. They designed issues of how the economy should be. They were like a legislative branch overseeing the country. That they were a legislative branch. They weren't the branch that went out there and said, "Well, you have to do this in the Ministry of Sport or the Ministry of so forth." All of the members of the Central Committee were picked, chosen, represented different parts of the government, and they were the ones that set broad policy for others to implement.
Right. All right. And after that order was given, Maurice Bishop was shot. Where was his body taken?
I don't know. That's the truth.
Who knows?
I would figure the American government and maybe members of the Central Committee are alive now. That's just my opinion. What I can tell you is that in terms of rank and leadership, I probably would be one of the first people on the fort. I drove to the other fort. I got permission from Colonel James to go to the fort and see exactly for myself. When I got to the fort, there's a young man named, I can't remember, I think his name is Gosling. He was killed. He was dead already. I saw Vincent Noel, who was dying. He was at just below the Janet truck that had pulled up there before I got there. But he was there, and he was dying. I knew he would have. I knew he would have expired, would be dead in a little while because he was dying. When I left, what made me leave is that I saw the soldiers bring down Fitzroy Bain. I saw Fitzy, and they put him at the back of the truck. At that point in time, I said, I need to move out from here. And myself and Cameron Coffey, who also work with us, I think he's a doctor now in Canada, we left. So the only person I saw brought down from the fort was Fitzroy Bain. I saw Vince Noel, who was dying on the ground. Subsequently died, of course. He was dying from his from wounds, bullet wounds. He was wounded badly. Foot was broken in a natural angle, etc. And another young one, member, I think he used to be involved in the communication on the fort. His nickname is, either his name or his nickname is Gosling. He got hit and he was dead already. So that's the number of people. When I got there, I met Joseph Scalise. Used to be in the fire department in Mike, you probably know him, from St. David's, used to be in the fire department. And he was up there putting out some of the fire with some of his people on the fort. So that's my recollection of the day.
So Mike, in your position, when you got on the fort and you saw these other people and did you know that the Prime Minister was shot? Did you know the Prime Minister was killed?
At that point in time?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you inquire, or what action did you take?
I asked when the green flare came out, I happened to be on the other fort. And I asked Colonel James, I said, the green flare signified that they've taken back the fort because there was gunfire before. And then the gunfire stopped and they saw the green flare. And I asked him, tell me what is happening. No, we're very, very close, you know, over the years. And as he said, we've taken back the fort. And I said to him, casualties? And he said, yes. And my next question to him, Maurice? See, Maurice is dead. That's before I got to the fort. He told me.
Were you interested in finding out where his body was?
Yeah, because we asked over the days, because I didn't see when they moved the bodies. I saw one body come down, and that was Fitzroy Bain.
Who was moving the body? Who was moving the body?
The soldiers.
Who soldiers?
Yeah, Callister's strike force. Richardson, what's the other one? We used to call him Dummy. Andy Mitchell. I don't remember the other guys, but they were in full uniform and they were bringing down the bodies. The first body to come down off of the fort was Fitzroy Bain, and they put him at the back of the big yellow Janet truck. So obviously they were going someplace. Where they went with them after that, don't know to this day.
Inquire? Did you try to inquire? Because that's important.
Yeah.
That's the prime minister.
Yes. We had many heated arguments as to what I've been told is that the bodies were interred someplace in, I don't know what part of Calivity, because there was a big tire burning kind of stuff in that area. And after that, we were told that when the Americans invaded, they took the remains of Maurice Bishop and everybody, lest he become a martyr. That's what I've been told.
But there have to be somebody that know, besides the American government.
Oh yeah.
You said, you know, Kalita, was it
Callistus? Yeah,
right. Abdullah.
Yeah.
Right. He was very much there, and from the documentary, I know that he was very present and his actions. So he would know.
I would hazard a guess, a very educated guess, that most of the soldiers who were in that strike force, including the commander at the time, remember Connie was dead already, and the next in line was Abdullah, who would have overseen the execution, would know where and the whereabouts of the remains. It's just that people don't want to talk.
Have you ever asked him?
I haven't spoken to Abdullah in years. I spoke to Goat on WhatsApp because I know Goat very well, and I spoke to Sue and that. But you know, I've never gotten an answer. I've gotten, you know, some level of evasion, but somebody has to know. Let's be very, very clear. Some people have to know. Whether they swear to secrecy to this day, I don't know. But some people who were there on that particular day, they took part in the activity. They lined them up against the wall. They took part in the activity. They brought the bodies down into a truck. They obviously were bringing the bodies somewhere. So somebody has to know. Yeah.
And I don't understand the secrecy, because I've been in contact with every member, all the names that you called for me today. And I've called them. I've spoke to some of them personally on the phone. None of them wants to talk to me.
Well, for years, nobody wanted to say who could give the order. So it was ambiguous. It was all there. Maybe Bernard, maybe this one, maybe this one. And I said today, I hope I've cleared that up today as who could give the order.
Yes.
I hope I've cleared it as somebody who's been there.
Denis, go right ahead.
Yeah, once again, Junior, that's a lot. And as you know, I'll be honest with you, I know how hard it is for Mr. Roberts, you know, to come out here and try to be as objective as he can. But we also know about the code of secrecy, not to speak, not to talk. We have had that happen to the detainee situation, and no soldier would come out and talk the truth, or the truth to power. What happened in Hopeville, what happened wherever. Even the situation in Plains with the execution of Steve Lassie and others, they're not talking. But I already know that the two vehicles left pearls, and the dispatching guy who was there, I know who went and who shot and who gave the order. We already know that that's public, so I'll hook up behind the scenes Mr. Roberts to some of that information, because I know they're not talking and they're lying. In any event, I wonder if Mr. Roberts know anything about the death of Dorset Peters and who possibly would have killed him on the fort. That was when Maurice Bishop went up to the fort and he made a phone call to a soldier on the other side of the camp in the codes side as to what was happening on the fort, with Unison Whiteman talking about no surrender. You give up your arms and come down, else you die. You know, give up your arms.
Yeah.
What do you know about that?
Actually, that was not Unison. That was not Unison.
Who said that?
Vince Noel.
Vincent Noel.
And he was speaking to me. He was speaking to me.
Mm-hmm.
He was speaking to me. When they entered the fort, I was asked by General Austin and my boss, Colonel James, to call. I called. The first person that picked up the phone, yes, it was Unison. And I asked for Morris. I told him who I am, who's calling.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that Morris is somewhere outside, and that he can't come to the phone right now. So I said to him, Uni, you know why this is urgent. We need to have a talk. We need to say we need to deal with this and diffuse this going on before it's already out of hand. That's before, by that time, the BTR, I'm going to say BTR for your viewers, the armored car had already left. The cars, the two of them, they had already left. So he said to me that he's going to try to see if we get Morris. I said, listen to me, you know what it's all about. And Uni was not adversarial or loud. So I knew about that conversation. Somebody might have heard me speak about that conversation. I was the one. Ian St. Bernard was right next to me when it happened. We were the two that were asked to call the fort and deal with it. I didn't get Morris. The phone hung up. I called back probably about 5 or 6 minutes later. And Vince Noel picked up the phone. And I said to Vince, listen, I was just talking to Uni. I need Morris on the phone right now. You need to get Morris. And he said to me, Morris incoming in no effing phone right now.
Yeah.
Tell Hudson, Austin, and Bernard Cole to give up themselves to the nearest police station.
Police station. Yeah.
That's what Noel told me. So you see how things get sometimes garbled? I was the one that took that call. And you know what he did? He janked the jack out of the wall. So there was no communication at that point in time with the phone. And that is exactly what happened. So I'm glad you raised that. I could clear that up because
a soldier who guard Bernard Code and we are like that.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of inside information which I don't have to reveal here. But I'm saying to you, whether it's Unison or you said it's Vincent Noel and so forth.
He has said that, yeah.
Yeah, he died now. But
yes.
There is something else. There is something else that who, in your opinion, killed Dorset Charles? Because he was the first person who alerted the other side. There was some communication going back and forth, and one of them said, "Your effing or your mother or whatever, traitor," and then pow 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 pow, they blew his head off. I got that from a soldier, a top-ranking guard of Bernard Code.
So it's Dorset I saw. I called him a different name. Perhaps
I'll fill you in because I have inside information.
Probably.
Yeah.
So I probably call him by a nickname. It's Dorset I saw. I saw him, yes, and his face was blown off. Yes, you are right.
So they suspected the three persons who might have killed him would be A, Unison Whiteman, which the suspicion is it could have been Maurice Bishop who pulled the trigger, or the other gentleman, and I keep forgetting I can't pronounce his name, I keep forgetting, and need to write it down next time.
Yeah.
Right? And that is inside information.
Well, he was outside, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mike.
He was, okay.
Two things you said, Mike, that I want to take issues with.
Tell me.
You said the revolution collapsed because of the American intervention / invasion. I
No,
totally disagree.
I said it. That is what led up to it. It wasn't as a result of the U.S. Invasion. The revolution was already dead after
Good.
Morris
Okay.
Bishop was killed,
Good.
and
Okay.
the Revolutionary Military Council took place. The
All
revolution
right.
was
Great. Now,
dead at that point in time.
now, Mike, if Denis and I had approached the fort on any given day, what would be our fate?
You know, like you alone.
Yeah, if I had any one of us approaching a military base.
Well, you'll be stopped and of course checked, and they would ask you what your view is. They would have gone to the if you have a legitimate a meeting, they would have gone to the side and called up.
No, I am asking that because Morris Bishop led a delegation or led people on the fort in a military base.
Yes, that is true.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. What is the punishment for that? What happens when someone encroaches on a military base?
Well, if you encroach legally, there's not a consequence.
No, in the way Morris did. The way Morris did.
That was an illegal move. It was you bring people onto a military base. Yeah, I said that was a reckless move on the part of the group who went up to the fort at that point in time. And
so in other words,
it is kind of fortunate.
So in other words, are you saying that it was a reckless move? So you're saying that the death was justified militarily? Huh?
No, I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that. At all.
But tell me.
At all. He could have been arrested. He could have been given due process or whatever it is. No.
But we did not. No due process was set up by the government. Your government had no due process. You did not have a constitution.
Yeah,
you did not have a system of changing leaders. So what process were you talking about?
I am saying to you clearly that the decision by a mob, which is what it was, to go to the fort, led by Morris Bishop, was a reckless move. Okay. Now, what the consequence of that? Well, history told us what the consequences were. What happened?
Okay.
Was that the right consequence or the consequence? I don't think that was the right consequence.
Mike, what you had to talk about is the fact that there were distribution of arms from the armory. Yes. I alluded to that in a video I did maybe 2 days ago or 3 days ago. So I understand that directly, Bernard Code didn't have any. If you could put it that way, you cannot trace a linkage between him and the actual physical firing on the fort of bullets that killed. But the faction, we must remember, there were two factions at that time in government, in the PRG. You had MAP and you had ORL. The ORL group of guys were the ones controlling the army and dominating the CC. So by remote control, if you want to use that phrase, remote control, the power structure, the whole top tier of the PRA, they were Bernard Code people. So, they could have stormed the fort anytime and do whatever they want to do. And then, of course, yes, the foolishness from Vincent and Uni, you say Uni did, but somebody told me Uni did make that statement, no more negotiation, surrender or die or whatever it is. So push come to shove. I'm not happy that innocent people got killed, but we had to face facts.
Yeah. All right, here where I want to touch on, I know we have to wrap up, and this will be the final part of this series, is October 25th. Guys, did Mike, did the regime know that the Americans were coming? Were they tipped off that the Americans was coming? What information they?
No. They were there. They were in Barbados. Excuse me. They were in Barbados weeks before that. So it wasn't a secret that they were coming. Eugenia Towers called for them. So it was not. It wasn't a secret. We knew that they were coming. But what do we do?
Yeah. So it was well known that the American was coming. What kind of preparation did the military had
Oh Lord.
to welcome the Americans?
Y'all, I hope Mike and Dennis is happy at the level of interrogation that I've been put through. Anyway,
I know.
Mike, you
Yeah.
have to have a lot of information.
I'm
Oh
gonna
my
cook. I'm gonna
goodness.
cook a goat for you. I don't know. You know, when I come to
That'll be
this,
well.
I'm gonna cook a
That'll be
goat for
well.
you. Yeah.
What was the question about? What military preparation?
Yes.
Yeah, it was military preparation. We had an army, so there were military preparations, redistribution of weapons, ammunition, etc. Remember that the U.S. government, the U.S. armed forces, took about 11 days to take St. George's, and they were fighting on the. They were the first to land on the international airport, by the way, and the fighting started down there. With waves of paratroopers and so coming in and be shooting from there. I was on the western side. I was not in the south. I met up with the other groups about a day or 2 days later. So there were military preparation. There were areas that we didn't defend in a really strong way because of the resources and the numbers that we had. So, but in terms of planning an offensive and planning to what we were, we did the best we could to understand the fact that you're facing the greatest superpower in the world. It wasn't a matter of sitting down and laying down your arms. You had to do what you had to do. I myself, after that, I was arrested and put in prisoner of war camp for about 4 or 5 months. And then I was released and rearrested by the Barbadian
Officer, I know. The guy in charge of the prison.
The police department I was arrested and spent 7 months in the jail, and 3 months of those 7 months are spent in solitary confinement. So Dennis, I've come the whole full circle.
Wow, man! I hope you were not put in my cell.
I had a cat that used to come in my cell in the night, kind of keep me company.
They don't kill rat up there. They don't kill rat.
But I am. No, what scared me in the cell was the wood slave. Them gecko that fall on you in the night in the dark. But oh, good Lord, that is the worst. That one is one I couldn't deal.
I know.
Yeah. And what was the fate of the 17? What happened? How? Why? I mean, at one point in time, again, I was young. I was very young. So all of this history, I've missed a lot of it because I was just so young. I'm hearing second knowledge information from my parents and other people.
Oh, you mean the 17?
17, yes.
Who were tried?
Yes.
Yeah, well, they were tried in a court of law, of course, and they were in jail, and afterwards, after time, they were released. What could I tell you? They were charged for the murder of Morris and others, and they eventually were sentenced to death, and then that sentence was commuted to life imprisonment, and then afterwards, whatever politics took place, they were released and get on with their lives.
Yeah. I saw that John Crow say that this cannot be the final episode.
Good Lord.
We have Austin and Lane. And for full disclosure, I did speak to Lane, and he did promise me that in March we will have a conversation. So hopefully in March we convene another conversation with Mr. He watched the program, so I'll be surprised if he's not watching the program here tonight. And also Bernard Cord, who is an avid viewer of Ridealong, he also watched the program. We heard that his wife died just a few months ago.
Recently.
But he always watched the program. but we're calling on. There's so much more history that we need to get out, and people are just keeping silent. Michael Roberts, I applaud you for coming on and you when I called you, you said, you know, this is gonna be a combative
A
one.
grill fest. I told you it was going to be a grill fest. I know.
But it's history that the younger ones, the generation, need to know. There was
I
a
agree.
lot I was
I
reviewing
agree.
yesterday that
I agree.
did not know, and I applaud you for giving us that historical context. We're gonna kind of close it off now. So I'll go.
Junior,
Yeah.
I remember when Keith Mitchell came into power and he had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission modeled along the South African model. I was the first person, I was the editor of Carib News at the time. I was the first person to say, I want to testify, no holds barred, in the public setting. Ask me to ask me what you will. Once it does not contravene official secrets or anything like that, so I would be there to speak about it. And he refused.
Nobody ever called me. I never heard anything about Truth and Reconciliation.
Oh yeah, there was a time. You never heard about it?
After the fact, I don't know what they call that. Everybody know who Denis is.
Mike should know about it because I think you might have been home at the time.
Of course, but that was just political grandstanding. How could you talk about truth and reconciliation and in the parliament you're pointing fingers as to who killed who and who did this and who did all of that?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna have truth and reconciliation, you have to forgive and forget and bury it and start afresh. Every time he gets a chance, you talk about who buried who and who was in the truck with this one and all of that. It was a farce.
It is a joke.
Even though it was flawed, I was still prepared to sit down, face the questions, tell the truth, and to tell the truth as I know it. I've tried to do that on this program, Junior, because you know me. Yes. I don't put my mouth in water for anybody. And if I find something is not right, I will speak about it. At this stage in my life, I have to be able to pass on information to people who really do it. And I'm glad that some people who are looking at this program today heard some things literally for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I applaud you guys. I want to also just close when you guys giving your closing statement. If we could just look at this whole thing retrospectively and see what we could learn now and going forward about our history, because there are some things that's happening right now that we don't even know why it's happening. There is a lot of chaos sometimes in people, and sometimes I say that's because in our population it's been so dramatic, but yet so much of the population never really gets psychological treatment for what happened during the
trauma.
Traumatized, you know what I mean? You find a lot of sexual abuse happening, a lot of things happening, and sometimes we just brush it off as that person is going crazy or that person is just mad. But why? If you trace back, it might be something traumatic that was never really taken care of, and that the revolution might be an answer to some of those problems. So I want to look at it retrospectively and what we could learn and what we could do better going forward in the future. I'll start with you, Dennis. Let's wrap it up. We have about exactly 10 minutes. Let's split it up.
No, I'll just take about 2. Yeah, thanks again, Junior George and fellow Grenadians looking and Grenadians in the diaspora. I know how important it is to learn facts. Some of it, some of them would be unsettling to you. Probably you have heard them for the first time. I am very pleased to be in the company of Michael Derrick Roberts and my other buddy, Michael Baptiste, and of course, yes, Junior. I just want to wrap up here now by saying that we need to forgive. We need to forgive. We are a Christian nation, and forgiveness and confession is part of the equation. You cannot hate and hold on to anger and make progress at the same time. We cannot. We have to bury the past. But of course, we have to teach the youth what happened. There were a lot of mistakes. It didn't start out that way. I mean, the revolution, just a few people got hurt on the morning of March 13th. It didn't end that way. So things went out of hand, and we learned from that. Let me just conclude that I have to mention I have to mention, and I hope everybody would understand where I'm coming from, the fact that many families, over 3,000, and we know it was more, were broken up. The impact of that on communal development or community development, Tivoli was drained. You know, it was depopulated. It became a ghost town after the revolution. So someone talk about the CPE program and literacy, you know, teaching people to read and write and all of that. We had that before the revolution in Tivoli. By the time the revolution was done, there was none. We had self-help, cleaning the streets, what they now call debushing. We used to clean from Tivoli all the way to La Poterie, cut all the bushes, open drains, and do all of that. Patch road with mud and stone, right under the auspices of Kenneth Bogbudlal. That was finished after the revolution. So there were good and bad, and a lot of worse. And if you were to put side by side the Mongoose gang and the things that they did, and they were not a government arm or part of the government, and what the PRA did, the atrocities, you know, people who get locked up because a PRA like your girlfriend, and they're going to send you down the hill, Ronnie Bob, terrorizing Tivoli, Mount Rose, putting a gun, some of the PRA, to the father of Tillman Thomas, former prime minister, to blow his head off in his house, and picking up his two other sons along with Tillman. So if you're talking about building a community, building a country, at the same time you're breaking families, and when you pick up the breadwinner and jail them, like some of the guys from Mount Rich, the girl children, what they had to do, I wouldn't say it on Facebook, to get $2 to eat.
Check your time, and we have to split it up.
All right. Well, I have one more second, so I yield to Michael Baptiste.
Well,
Hey, remember, we're doing this like the debate tonight, you know, we had a mute button.
I yield.
Go ahead, Michael Roberts, let's close it up.
I want to thank you for this opportunity, Jude. As me, as one of the key players in the revolution, for many, many years have been maligned about my involvement. That is a consequence of what I was, and I embraced what I was. I am now far more smarter, much sharper, and with the value of hindsight, I can look at that process not through the eyes of a 27-year-old man, but right now I can look at it with the wisdom and experience of somebody who is going to be 70 years on the 8th of December. That said, I want to speak directly to young people and not so young people who may have experienced a revolution, have been told about it, or who were not alive yet when the revolution took place. And this is what I want to say to them. One, if you are Grenadian, your family members are Grenadians, or you trace your roots to Grenada, Grenada has always been a major country for leadership in the Caribbean. We can go as far back as we want, and Grenadians have always done that. Through our lifetime and through the time of this beautiful little island, its people are a proud, what Morris Bishop used to call the salt of the earth, a proud people with a sense of nationality and nationalism second to none in the region. We've set records for everything. And in that process, we've done some things that are not too good. But history is about taking the good with the bad and the indifferent. We have to own, but the things that were done bad is the things that we need to accept, either apologize or atone for, so that we can move forward as one people. One people. And we are one people. I would tell people, I am proud to be Grenadian and everything else. So I accept the good, the bad, and the indifferent. I accept the hassling from Denis and Mike and whatever it is. It's all in good faith because we all don't have the answers, but we can find the answers if we embrace each other.
Thank you, there, sir. And Mr. Michael Baptiste, sir. Last
Thank
but
you
not
very
least.
much. I want to thank you, Junior, for putting together such an informative program. I think one of the areas where we have some deficiency in Grenada is the compilation of our history. Grenada has been blessed with two great leaders, Sir Eric Gary and Maurice Bishop. Though they came into power by different methods, I think they all meant well for Grenada. I think the time has come now where we must forgive, we must forget what happened. We must say never again shall Grenadians be pitted against one another in the way it was done, whether it was under Uncle Gary or whether it was under Maurice Bishop or both. I think the time has come where we must call for general healing. We must work together to build our nation. 79 has robbed us of a lot of great resource people. I think now is the time that Grenadians at home and abroad, we should come together at this time and try to put all our resources together and see how we could build our country, and let's live in peace and harmony as one nation under God, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique.
Amen.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. And it's true. And I just want to end by saying that now is the time. Now is the time for us to break that ice that, the people with the information against the people who are yearning for the information, the younger people. Now is the time for those people who have this information. Now is the time for you to share it. It's a yearning for it. I've been getting calls. We've been getting calls for this. That's why we did a 3-part series. First time ever we did a 3-part series in any program. And the population is yearning for this information. So now is the time for the people with the information to crack that ice and speak and let us understand what really happened. I mean, a lot of the people who was involved at that point in time, they're in their 70s, probably some of them going on 80s. Don't die with that information and leave a population hungry for that information that you're holding so dear to your heart. Now is the time to speak. Now is the time to speak and speak out and put this thing into historical context. We appreciate every one of our panels here today, guys. We appreciate and love you. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being a part of our program. We appreciate, you guys stuck around for this discussion. You guys participated and we really, really appreciate that. We're going to run back this 3-part series and make this 3-part series available. So at any time you could go back and watch it over and over again. This is like a museum of information. If you didn't see part 1, go back and watch part 1. You see Livingston Nelson talking about how passionate it is, giving some historical recollection. You'll see so many different individuals giving their historical recollection and some truth. So guys, again, tomorrow we go back to our regularly scheduled program, and sometime in the week, although this is our last program in the series, but we will entertain conversation pertaining to the revolution, the election, the invasion, Maurice Bishop, Uncle Gary. We will have sporadic programs to give more historical context. This concludes our 3-part series. Again, we thank you guys for watching. Thanks to our guests for joining us. Peace out, guys. Join me again tomorrow. But before I go, I got to tell you about the things that we're doing here on Ride Along, and we want you guys to be a part of it and to support the people who make sure that this program stays on air. I want you guys to support this program right here. It's the Megaforce Promotion Wagity Virtual Bingo, and that's happening on Sunday, November 1st. $20,000. Tickets only $20. You can get it at GoToFed. $20,000 US. Check that out. Also, guys, if you haven't or if you plan, well, these things are not planned. It's sad that it happened, and it's still happening right now. There are people that are, family members who are going to the great beyond. But because of COVID, we cannot participate in services. We cannot be there for them. Sometimes we cannot travel because airport restrictions. So we understand that. So we provide a very unique service to families. If you need any streaming for any particular service that you cannot make it there, Ridealong Family was created specifically for that purpose. Give us a call today. And for funeral, for weddings, whatever it is that you need to stream, it could be private, for your family only, or public, whatever it is. We'll provide professional quality streaming services so that your family that cannot make it to that particular event could watch it live. 718-701-5720. Streaming live, watch it from home or your mobile device. Call Ridealong Family right now. The number is 718-701-5720. Share it with a friend. And when they call, tell them you heard me mention this right on the program here tonight for a special discount. We understand what families are going through right now, and we're here to make it just a little bit easier.
But when you check out Grenada,
Also, guys, we got to tell you about our Ridealong $10,000 shopping spree. Yeah, 10,000. Sorry. Oh, Lord. I want to get to the point where I'm giving a $10,000 shopping spree. It's actually a $1,000 shopping spree we're starting, and it's going to be next week. Yeah, we're going to give two persons. One person in Grenada, one person in Carriacou. $500 each. They'll go to a grocery store. They'll pick up items up to $500, and we will pay the bill. All right? If you want to nominate someone, you download the app. The app is called Emoji. You download the Emoji app, spelled E-M-O-O-G-E. Go into your app store and look for Emoji, spelled E-M-O-O-G-E. Download this app and just click on spree and then just nominate someone right there. And I think tomorrow we're going to, not tomorrow, next week, Monday, we will pull that name and somebody will win a $500 shopping spree. Compliments Emoji and Ridealong right here. Thanks for watching, guys. Also, we got to tell you about the Clark Scott. Yeah, Clark Scott and the hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer by Clark Scott, bottled and manufactured by the Grenada Distillers Limited. It's small, it's carryable, it's great. 70% alcohol by volume. Get your hand sanitizer from the Grenada Distillers Limited. If you have a business and you want to advertise, you want to get the word out on Ridealong Live, we are ready. Yeah, man, give us a call. Advertise your business right here on Ridealong Live. It doesn't cost a penny. It pays to advertise. It pays to advertise. Call Ridealong Live right now, 718-701-5720, or inbox us. Inbox us. Just go to our inbox and tell us. We'll send you a package. Easy like that. We'll show you how you can maximize on your dollars when you advertise right here on Ridealong Live.
and if I'm wrong, don't say that I'm right. No, I want to tell everybody I'm so proud of my country. Don't care wherever I may be, I say Grenada belong to me. No country in this world could do the things that my country would do for me. I am proud.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
You want a hand sanitizer to do 3 things: kill germs, be gentle, and to go where you go. You can get all of that in our hand sanitizer. Hard on germs, gentle on hands, affordable. Remember, hand sanitizers contain alcohol. Keep away from heat and flames and avoid contact with eyes. Available at retailers island-wide.
Hey, I got some good news for you. Looking for a passionate immigration lawyer with experience that spans over 2 decades? Someone trusted that served immigrant families just like yours? Well, look no more. Now you can benefit from her personal and professional experience. Denis Winter Funde. Schedule a consultation now and get assistance with your immigration journey. Specialize in adjustment of status, B1 business visa, B2 visitor's visa, consular processing, deportation defense, naturalization, and more. Give us a call today at 813-815-3529. That's 813-815-3529 or online at winterimmigration.com. Attorney Denis Winter Funde. Law done differently.
We achieve, we aspire as one people under God.
For years, you shelter and protect we. Grenada for years, your genuine tender love was free. For years, you gave yourself unselfishly. For years, paradise to we and the family. Since emancipation, we became a nation with strength and unity, compassion, generosity, adversity of our society. Janet, Ivan, and Emily, tragedies, corruption, hurricanes, devastate us again with no pain. The loss of human life we regret. Some rooftops we cannot find yet. Torment, pain, and suffering. We bounce back and start rebuilding. Oh, now is the time to start our recovery. Now is the time to build back we country. Brick by brick, stone by stone, we building back we love we go. Now is the time to let your voices heard. Now is the time to make Grenada proud. Hand in hand, man and woman, every boy and little girl. Now is the time to build back the country. We are Indians, we are Negroes, we are mulattoes. We're building back we lovely home. Now is the time, there is still hope. It's never too late to plant some more spices. Now is the time